Well, I'm gonna let everybody speak and then you'll be the last one to read it.
So that everybody speak.
Every 10, up to 10.
We need timers like you.
No, because somebody just
Robin, you
came.
got it.
Not a call for one.
I'm not gonna start calling.
Yeah.
It's 10 total.
No, Ronnie, somebody came in tonight.
20.
People
So
came in
it's
tonight saying
20
they want
times
time
30.
to speak.
Times 3 minutes.
It's gonna be 2 hours of
Can they get to speak?
Hey, he
Don't
said,
interrupt.
Yeah, well,
He's
Three
going 10
times.
for and 10 against.
20 is
Or 3
even
minutes
if there's
max.
54,
so
50.
1 hour of speaking.
Twice, because you got annexation and you got,
No, 20, no, if it's 10,
it's 10 to each one. Now, it goes.
So 30 minutes for one and 30 minutes for the other.
Access, well, it's 30 minutes for each side, the one 30 minutes for each side. you know.
So maybe we should tell them, you know, if you want to talk to one, that's you probably want to talk to them.
So what I'm gonna ask y'all to do is hold your questions, and then we'll go to the other action to ask.
would, it's time.
Testing.
We'll be ready to go.
Got some
How
more?
about you ready?
Not afraid.
Okay, I call to order the town board meeting, November 17th, 2020. If you would, everybody rise for the allegiance, please. Okay. First item is the agenda, and so is any additions or changes to the agenda? I will say that under the consent agenda, Commissioner Medley will introduce the appointed person before we vote on that particular item. And also, I will say before we get into it that the 28th is, Saturday the 28th is a small business Saturday, and we did a proclamation on that. Let's do some shopping in Rolesville on the 28th, okay? Get out there and get some stuff bought up for the big holiday coming up. It'll be a big day, so let's support the businesses on that day. So, any other changes, additions to the agenda?
Yes, the transit study. It says acceptance of.
Yeah, I think the next step, if we want to do anything, would be the budget next year, and I don't know if we want to even consider it or not. But what's the purpose of accepting it? I guess.
The purpose is generally to accept the report, and then the recommendation is to not seek the grant funding this year, and so that was within the report, and so that would be, if you were to follow this, that would be the direction of this budget.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
You want approving it?
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as we're not approving it, yeah.
No, I think it's just accepted, and if we want to do anything, then we do it next budget season. Is that kind of what we would do? So.
Yes.
All right. So, any motion on the agenda then?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Oh, you said consent or the regular agenda?
Oh.
Regular agenda?
I could do both.
Yeah. Let's let Michelle introduce, and we'll vote on the consent. So
Oh,
we
okay.
vote on the regular right now.
Sure.
All right. So we got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. All right. Then if you would introduce the applicant.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Over here in the corner, should we bring her to the front, or is she fine
Please.
right there? Want to go over to the
Front and center.
podium? I'd like to introduce you all to Renata Pryor. She is a criminal attorney from Atlanta, Georgia. She's been here 3 years in Roseville, and she is our newest member to the planning board. So I would like to,
Thank you, thank you,
Welcome.
thank
Yep.
you.
like to say anything. Are you good?
Of course.
And I did say to Renata that she's small like me, because it seems like everybody's tall like Ronnie. So,
No.
thank you.
Yes, I just want to, of course, thank everyone, those that did have an opportunity to look at my, of course, any of my package or heard about the interview. I really appreciate you all thinking and going through the process of understanding who I am and knowing my excitement to be a part of this. I'm so excited to be in Roseville. I love Roseville. As I spoke to them about it earlier, it's been a great blessing for my son, who graduated from Roseville High School. And so I'm excited about that. He's in a Marine now, and so he's learned a lot from this area, and we hope that we continue to grow here. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you.
that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Monday or something like that, or Thursday, one of those days.
Thank you. Okay. Sheila, now I entertain the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Got a motion, a second?
I'll second.
All right. Very good. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, board. Next item is a public hearing, quasi-judicial style, case SP 20-03, Carolina Legacy Volleyball Site Plan. And understand,
He said for me to wait until he asked the question,
okay,
the attorneys.
okay. All right, so in that case then, I will call the case. And this is SP 20-03, I'll call for attorney for procedural statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quasi-judicial hearings have characteristics similar to court proceedings. Quasi-judicial decisions made by the board must be based only upon the evidence presented at this hearing and site visits by the board, if any. Witnesses must testify under oath or affirmation. The parties may be represented by legal counsel. The parties have the right to cross-examine witnesses. The parties have a right to object to improper testimony or evidence. There is a right to present rebuttal evidence. All evidence provided by witnesses must be competent and material. Unduly repetitious or irrelevant testimony may be barred. An attorney or party wishing to cross-examine a witness shall stand and wait to be recognized by the mayor. Normally, witnesses may testify only as to their personal knowledge of facts. With regard to competent evidence, North Carolina General Statute 160A 393 prohibits a person from giving opinions about scientific, technical, and other specialized subjects unless the person by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education is in fact an expert on that subject. A person wanting to give an opinion as an expert must first state his or her qualifications to be an expert. 160A 393 specifically prohibits opinions that, quote, the use of property in a particular way would affect the value of other properties, or opinions that, quote, the increase in vehicular traffic resulting from a proposed development would pose a danger to the public safety, unless the witness is an expert on the subject. A member of the board shall not participate in this hearing if the member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, has engaged in undisclosed ex parte communications, has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or an affected person, or has a financial interest in the outcome of this matter. And it's my understanding that one of the commissioners does have a potential conflict that he needs to disclose.
Yes, fellow commissioners and everyone, I am the broker representing the buyers of the property and assisting them in the development of it, so I choose to recuse myself from these proceedings.
Any objections from any board members? Okay, Jackie, you're excused. Thank you.
As to our remaining board members, allow me to go through the voir dire questions. Is any member predisposed to vote a particular way on this matter such that his or her opinion is fixed and the evidence presented during this hearing is not likely to influence his or her decision?
No.
No.
Has any member discussed this matter with proponents, opponents, or others?
No.
Does any member have a close familial, business, or associational relationship with the applicant or an aggrieved party?
No.
Does any member have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter?
No.
While not a conflict of interest, specialized knowledge of members should be disclosed. Does any member have particular knowledge or expertise regarding the site or the subject matter of this hearing?
No.
No.
Has any member made a site visit?
No.
I visited the site with the developers before they even, when it was a thought, I believe.
Okay. Based upon that visit, has that visit influenced you in such a way that your opinion as to this matter this evening is fixed and not susceptible to be changed? Are there any objections to the participation of this commissioner?
No.
By any parties? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Commissioner Steve. Is there any objection by any member of the board or by a party to the participation of any other members on the basis of any conflict of interest?
No.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all we have.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will ask the clerk to administer oaths to the witnesses, and I will encourage anyone that if you think you're going to speak tonight at this hearing, please take the oath at this time, so we'll get them all in one try. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to provide testimony, you will raise your right hand and wave on. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I will open the hearing and I will call for staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It says it is, I'm just short. Let's try that. All right, so good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we're reviewing case SP 20-03 for Carolina Legacy Volleyball. It is for a one-story commercial building on a total of almost 5 acres located on Granite Vista Drive. Before you see a location map, and you see the aerial view outlined in red are the parcels that this site is associated with. And on the right side of the map is the official zoning map where you see the blue hatching and the red parcels outlined. The blue hatching is for the Office and Professional Special Use District. The 2017 Rolesville Comprehensive Plan classifies these parcels for commercial use. A traffic impact analysis is not required for this proposed development because it will have less than 100 vehicles per hour and less than a daily trip generation of 1,000 vehicles. A neighborhood meeting was held on October 14th, 2020, virtually via Zoom at 3 p.m. and 5 persons attended. Here before you and in your packet, you have the site plan. I've taken the liberty to blow this up a little bit to give you a visual for the site. Let's change this to laser pointer. This is where the proposed building will be. This is a parking area. This is a parking area. This is the stormwater retention pond. These are outdoor sand volleyball lots. This is a buffer protecting the residential uses here from the business use that is the Carolina Legacy Volleyball site. This is a rendering of the front view of the Carolina Legacy Volleyball building. So you'll see the doorways here and the front glasswork here. The Technical Review Committee has made a recommendation. They have approved, recommends approval for the plan as presented. It has gone through several rounds of TRC, and every reviewer has given their recommendation for approval at this time. Planning staff recommendations are subject to the evidence and testimony presented to the public during this hearing tonight. If what is presented remains unchanged as presented for the site plan, then planning staff also recommends approval of the site plan. And for the record, I would like to enter in the staff memo and all the attachments with the staff memo into the record for the hearing. And that concludes the staff report, and the applicants are here along with their attorney to discuss the actual details of the site.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did this come before the planning board?
This does not come before the planning board because it is a quasi-judicial site plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? None? Not hearing any?
I'll
Okay.
remain in the room just in case there's something else for staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we will accept the application and the staff report and admit that into evidence. So I will ask, is there any attorneys in present for either party?
Yes, Mayor.
All right, and you are for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. Is any present for opposition? No attorneys? Okay. Then I will allow a brief statement from you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it okay to take the?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. My name is Andrew Peterson. I am attorney and counsel for the developer of this project as well as counsel for Carolina Legacy Volleyball Club. Briefly, not knowing exactly what the COVID rules will be tonight, I did a real brief information packet that I provided all of you this evening. It basically outlines some of the special use permit qualifications or criteria. If you look through that, I've basically addressed all those as best I could. with respect to those and trying to address any issues that may come up with those. Basically, these issues, whether this will materially endanger the public health and safety. Thank you. I think based on the attachments, the exhibits that I've included in this package, those exhibits being some of the information you've already seen. First, the site plan. Second, the Wake County Stormwater and BMP calculations report, along with Raymond Kemp Associates trip generation report, and then finally the Wake County Fire Services report. There doesn't seem to be anything to suggest any kind of negative impact that would endanger the public health or safety of this project. Briefly with criteria B, as far as injuring the value of the adjoining property, I think staff previously talked about some of the improvements on the property. This is an undeveloped piece of land. Some of the improvements as far as drainage with this project, as well as the expensive, very in-depth landscaping that's going in as a buffer zone for the residential area. I don't think it would have any negative impact on property value. With respect to the criteria C, whether it's in scale and bulk and coverage and density character of the neighborhood, it is similar in footprint to the commercial property adjacent to it, which I think you might be able to see on the site plan. It might be in your materials from staff. And it also does not overwhelm the residential area that is buffered, and particularly with the landscaping that protects that residential area. So I don't think there's going to be issues with that particular criteria. Criteria D, with respect to the comprehensive plan, I think you guys can rely on staff for that. I don't want to speak to whether that fits within that or not. That's not for me to provide any kind of opinion on. Criteria E, again, I would look at the examples, the exhibits that I'm putting here with respect to Wake County, the stormwater, the site plan, fire service report. It seems to fit with any of the transportation facilities, water, sewer, fire, police protection. So it would fit that criteria as well. And then with respect to criteria F, the traffic congestion, that seems to be the only thing that has ever come up that would be a possible issue based on that report from Raymond Kemp and Associates. Their findings based on traffic patterns said it would be a minimal impact. I think that's true. I can get someone later who's the director of the program to explain that most of this traffic with this facility will be after rush hour traffic hours. It's pretty much drop off. So there's not going to be a lot of congestion. The only other time that this would potentially have any kind of impact on traffic is that we use it on the weekends for practices and occasional tournaments. So again, I would agree with that report from Raymond Kemp Associates that it would be a minimal impact, if at all. And then finally, does the proposed development comply with all applicable requirements of this ordinance? There doesn't seem to be any evidence that's been presented previously or I think tonight that would suggest that it doesn't. Therefore, I don't see any negative impact of this development to the community. In fact, I think there's a lot of positive things that can provide for the community. If there's any technical questions about the site plan, I would refer to the site engineer, John Jones, here. He can speak to that. And if there's any other questions with respect to how the facility would be used, both the developer and the director of the program that would be using the facilities, the beneficiary of that facility is here tonight as well. And I think they'd be more than willing to answer any questions you might have. I will be here the entire time, so if there's any questions that I can address that you might have, I'd be happy to answer those now. Or if they come up later, I'll also be happy to address those at that point.
Okay, do any other the witnesses have any evidence they want to enter?
I don't believe so unless Mr. Edwards does.
No,
Yes, sir.
covered everything.
Okay. Is it any of them have any statements they want to make first, anything like that?
Doesn't appear that they do.
All right, so we just ask the board here, is there any questions you have from them? I have one. Is Legacy? I'm not familiar with Legacy. Do you have these facilities in other Wake County towns too, or would this be the first one?
So this would be the solely dedicated facility for Carolina Legacy. In a prior iteration of this club, they did rent a facility in Wake Forest, and this would be a standalone facility specifically for use for this club. Other programs like this throughout the county and in other counties have their own standalone facilities. This would be the only type of facility in this general area that's a standalone facility for a club like this. So it would be competitive with other applicable clubs in the area.
Okay. So understand correctly, is the clubs played each other type of thing? Is that?
They do. They also play in out-of-state tournaments. There's tournaments within the state. They also travel. Last year, for example, they played in Myrtle Beach, Virginia Beach, Roanoke, Virginia, D.C., Orlando, Tennessee, St. Petersburg, Florida, as well as playing many tournaments in state. Yeah.
About the board, any other questions? Anybody, board members?
I think the only question I would have is the building-wise, do you see ever a need to expand the building from what you have, what you're proposing here at the time?
I will answer that as best I can, and then I would defer to the executive director. I don't anticipate that. I think this is a situation where this facility is specific for that volume of folks we have currently, which is generally youth, both boys and girls. It's predominantly girls right now, but boys volleyball is becoming more and more popular. So I don't anticipate any expansion of the facility. The only thing that we would use it for is a practice facility and also for smaller type tournaments. A lot of the tournaments that they go to that are in larger cities would be almost 50 times the size of this facility and have, for example, the one in the District of Columbia, I think last year had 725 teams from all across the world, not just the United States.
I have one other question.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, were you done, Paul?
Yeah, I'm done. Yep.
Would the facility be used for citizens sometime during the week as open volleyball?
That would be a question for the executive director of it. That's certainly something that can be done. This club has open tryouts for anyone in the community. Obviously, I think the objective is trying to get more local feel. Now, right now, there are folks that participate in this organization that are in Rolesville, Wake Forest, Granville County, Vance County, Durham County that travel already to participate in this program. So obviously, it would be available for local youth to participate. But
I'm sorry, they travel to where to participate?
They travel currently to a rented facility. Last year it was in Wake Forest. Currently, right now, I believe it's in Youngsville. So we have folks traveling many miles to come participate with this program, all the way from Durham, Vance, Franklin, Granville, surrounding counties, as well as Wake County.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Thank you. And next, I will call for any evidence from parties in opposition and their witnesses. So were there anyone here in opposition to this application? No one signed up, did they, Robin? Okay. All right. Well, in that case, then, I will entertain a closing argument from the attorney if he has one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, to reiterate, based on all the evidence that you would have as exhibits in the package of information that I provided, along with any information from the site engineer in the town of Rolesville, there has been nothing that I have seen that would cause me to have any kind of belief that this wouldn't be a positive development for the town of Roseville. And based on of all that, I would suggest that this is supported by the council.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would ask for any comments from the staff. Any,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
the evidence that you have received is in the form of the package delivered by Mr. Peterson. While much of that is argument, some of that is certainly evidence of a sort. Because there has been no opposition to that evidence, normally we might say much of it is hearsay. because you have a letter, but you don't have a traffic engineer, for example. You have statements regarding the site plan, but you have not heard from Mr. Edwards, even though he is here. Okay? It would be the board's decision or the chair's decision to make a determination regarding the reliability of that hearsay evidence. It would be reasonable, perhaps, to accept this package as evidence in this case, given that there has been no argument in opposition to it, and there is no opposition to the case in general. But normally, this would be something that we might have a concern with, but we have to consider the value of what we have in the context of the particular case. Does that make any sense? And with that, I would ask if it makes sense to the chair to acknowledge that this is accepted as evidence in support of the applicant's case.
And I ask the board, you got any objections to that? Okay. All right. Any last statements before I do that from the staff?
No, staff has no further comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we would accept the report provided by Carolina Legacy Volleyball as evidence in this procedure. And I will ask if there's any last question before I close this evidentiary hearing.
I have one clarification, and I don't know who this question goes to. Oh, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Loud. I'm looking at the actual courts on the interior. I don't see seating. Is there seating in there, or am I not making sense? Is there supposed to be seating in there? Can someone talk to me about the site plan? Do people get to sit and watch their child practice? I'm just trying to get clarity on the setup. It just looks like 4 courts and a floor.
I'll briefly address this and turn it over to the developer as well.
Sure.
There would be very limited seating in a facility like this. Primarily, this is a practice facility.
Gotcha.
Parents are allowed generally, although during this time, they're not allowed because of COVID restrictions, but
Sure.
generally they would be allowed in to watch practice. I will say, based on experience and full disclosure, my daughter does participate in this program. Typically, a lot of the parents, it's a drop-off situation for practice. Games and tournaments is sort of a different situation.
Gotcha.
And this facility, while primarily is a practice facility, it would be available for tournament play. And in that situation, there would be a limited capacity for viewing those tournaments outside of a COVID restriction type situation. And I'll chime in there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Lewis. That's my wife, Harriet Lewis. We're the developers in this project. Just a little bit about us. Is it okay if I
Yeah, sure.
introduce myself more? My wife and I were both retired police officers, detectives from New York City. We relocated to Wake Forest, North Carolina in 2012. We found paradise down here in the Carolinas. And like I said, something was placed on our hearts to do something bigger than ourselves. And volleyball was it, and we just saw the game and what it does for a lot of young people and the opportunity that it presents. So for us, like I said, it was placed on our hearts to try to do something bigger than us, and thus Carolina Legacy was formed. To address the seating, normally during practices we will have bleachers for the parents, but like I said, during this time it's limited. When we are able to host tournaments, again, you're looking at seating for people that want to sit. We're looking to do like youth leagues, like a rec league type programs. Parents will be allowed to, sit and watch the games when the COVID restrictions are lifted. So we just show just the set layout of the courts, but there is enough room to have bleachers for people to spectate.
Thank you for that. I
Okay.
appreciate that. This is a very engaged community. That's why I asked.
Yes, no, trust me, I understand.
Thank you for clarification.
So really quick, what will be the capacity for seating?
On average, largest, since there's 4 courts, if we usually have regional tournaments, you're looking at 4 teams per court. On average, there's 10 players on a team, so you're looking 160, in terms of, did I do my math right? I'm just checking. So 160 athletes participating on all 4 courts, and obviously with the parents involved. So 160 plus, hosting regional tournaments on average or less.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Appreciate that.
question. So, how many tournaments, I mean, is that like a rotation across the country, or do you have to sign up, like, we want to have a tournament at our place, and you're chosen, or how does that work?
Okay, one of the challenges is having locations to have tournaments. A lot of the local, smaller regional tournaments are run out of high school gyms. We've traveled to Alamance County and throughout the state of North Carolina to play a local regional tournament. So this facility will allow more tournaments where kids don't have to, families have to travel as far. We're traveling to Greensboro quite often to play in a local regional tournament. So there is a need for a facility like this to host the smaller tournaments. There are bigger tournaments where you have 100 volleyball courts in big convention centers. Those are not the tournaments we're looking to host. They're more smaller, one-day tournaments actually.
So it could be multiple small tournaments
Correct.
throughout the year, and it's a year-round?
Volleyball is actually year-round. You do have the sand courts that we have, the 4 sand courts, and we have the indoor courts. The indoor club season normally runs from November all the way up to June. And then from June, we'll transition into the sand court season, which is normally 8 players, 2 players per team in sand volleyball. So it's a lot smaller participation in terms of participants on the court. So,
You have sand tournaments as well?
correct, local sand tournament. So volleyball is a year-round sport, just transitions into 2 different seasons. And I might be overstepping because my director is a lot more knowledgeable about that than I am, so I don't mean to take a...
Well, I had asked a question earlier in regards to opportunities for evening play, like, adult
So
play.
on that note, I'm going to get the director so
Okay.
she can really get her...
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Christy Fitzgerald. I am the Director of Volleyball Operations for Carolina Legacy Volleyball. I couldn't hear the question clearly from out there, so.
I was asking, will there be opportunities, not right away, but at all for, say, like adult volleyball or outside of Legacy members volleyball?
Yeah, we actually had a meeting not too long ago with your Director of Recreation, and we're talking about some collaborative things with the city and your Parks and Rec Department. Now, our club, is, that's tryout, that's, but as far as things outside of that, having the facility 24/7 available to us, we can offer other things like youth leagues or adult open play in beach and inside. Yes.
Okay, so that was my next question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the director? Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions from the board? All right. I'll close this part of the evidentiary hearing, and I will turn it over to the board for deliberations and a motion. Any deliberations first?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I didn't finish the thing. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just excited because that's something that Roseville.
Did we
work
cover
well.
that one properly?
I don't know, I didn't get to read the case.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve case SP 20-03 Carolina Legacy Volleyball Site Plan.
All right.
I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes? So, that was unanimous, 4-0, I think, is the total for that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks. Very good.
And she answered the question right before I
Okay,
asked about
we'll let Jackie
collaboration.
return real quick, and then we'll get on with the business at hand.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
I know.
Forgot to ask.
All right, welcome back, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay, the next two items on the agenda is item 2 and item 3. We're continuing the public hearing on case ANX 20-03, Hopper Community Wheeler Property, Mitchell Mill Voluntary Annexation Petition. And 3 is continued public hearing case AMA 20-01, Hopper Community Wheeler Property, Mitchell Mill. These are two public hearings that are not quasi-judicial. They are legislative. I think what I'm going to do is we will do the two public hearings back to back, get the public comments all taken care of, and then we will deliberate and vote separately on the two items after the two public hearings. Is that okay with you, attorney? All right. So without any further ado, I will open the public hearing and entertain a introduction by staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As you've already introduced, this is a petition for voluntary annexation of 95.362 acres at 1801 Rolesville Road and 6301 Mitchell Mill Road in Wake County. This is a non-contiguous voluntary annexation. Oops, sorry. Well, let's see. Okay, I gotta do this back together. There we go. Thank you. The area in red is the area being petitioned for annexation. This is Rolesville Road. The high school will be up to the north. This is Callis Falls proposed development subdivision, and it is a satellite in the Rolesville town limits. That's why it's shaded in the gray there. So this is adjacent to the lower end of Callis Falls, and this property will also front on Mitchell Mill Road. Mitchell Mill Road intersection is right here. So with the petition and the consideration and the certification from the town clerk, we are, of course, now in the public hearing to consider annexation. Is there any particular questions about this annexation that I can answer?
I don't know what you meant by this is a satellite in Rolesville. What does that mean?
By state law, there is what you call primary corporate limits, which is the continuous part of corporate limits, and then anything that's out away from, not touching the primary, is a satellite.
Okay.
We have 3 satellite corporate limits in Rolesville, and this is not an actual adding more, it's just adding to the existing one.
Okay. Thank you, Danny.
Very good. Any other questions for Danny before we let him step down? All right. I guess, board, what we'll do is we're going to ask for comments from the public in favor, and we're going to ask for comments from the public in opposition. We will allow 10 from each side for 3 minutes, and I'm going to ask everyone that's speaking, please contain to 3 minutes if you would. And if it gets longer than that, we will probably interrupt. I would ask the board to let's get the comments out, let the public have their chance to comment and get the comments out, and then in our deliberations, if we have any follow-up questions, I can have them come back in if we need to address any questions. So if you would, as we go through the public hearings, write down a question if you got anything to follow up on, and we will do that. Just want to get the comments section of this public hearing kind of as efficient as we can, being that there may be so many speaking tonight, and we actually have two of them to do also. So with that, I will take any comments from the public in favor. And I see Beth is here, and you're probably going to start it off, huh?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Beth Trejos. I'm an attorney with Nelson Mullins, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Hopper Communities. Want to let you know the team that I have with me, we are all available for questions on either matter. Bill Harrell with Hopper Communities is here. Pat Barbo, who's a civil engineer with Timmons, is here. Josh Ranke, the traffic engineer with Ramey Kemp, who completed the traffic impact analysis, is here, as well as the Wheelers, members of the Fowler family, who are the landowners in this case, are also present this evening and available to talk with you at any time in the course of these hearings. We are, as your planning director said, here requesting that this property between Rolesville and Mitchell Mill Roads be brought into the town of Rolesville. We think it's important to be a part of the town, to participate in the community. We are directly across from Callis Falls, which has already been annexed into the town. We're just down the road from the Point, which is planned to become a part of the town. So Rolesville's already growing in this area, and that really is a part of the master plan. When you look at Wake County's land use plan, which includes this area, it envisions it becoming a part of the town of Rolesville. Under the county's land use plan, this property is in Rolesville's urban service area, and the county defines urban service areas as those areas in the county's jurisdiction expected and intended to be urbanized in the foreseeable future. So the county anticipates that this property and the area around it will become a part of Rolesville. You also anticipate that this property will become a part of your town in your comprehensive plan. Your plan suggests that a mix of residential types and styles at a density of between 3 and 5 units per acre are appropriate for this area, and the zoning and annexation requests comply with those long-range plans for this area. So we would ask for your support, your approval of the proposed annexation and the accompanying R3 zoning request. Those are my comments on this matter, and I'll thank you for your time, and I'll be back.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who's next?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bill Harrell. I'm a local partner in Hopper Communities. I would like to develop the Wheeler-Fowler property for 297 homes, 177 of which are single-family homes on at least 10,000 square foot lots, and 120 townhomes, all as the part of the town of Rolesville. We have asked that the town annex almost a 92-acre Wheeler-Fowler property because we believe that being a part of the town of Rolesville is an advantage to the people who will live in our neighborhood. Being in the town of Rolesville means having access to water and sewer utilities. To facilitate that access, Hopper Communities plans to invest well in excess of $1 million to connect to and upsize utility lines in the Callis Falls neighborhood and to install a sanitary sewer pump station on this property to serve the larger sewer basin. Annexing this property into the town of Rolesville means that this property will be developed under the town of Rolesville's rules and regulations. The town board will have an impact on what our development will look like. Annexing this property into the town of Rolesville also means that development fees and real property taxes will be paid into the coffers of Rolesville. Based on our proposed rezoning, in addition to the road improvements, the recreation amenities planned in our rezoning, and the town will receive $950,000 in recreation facility impact fees, over $854,000 in transportation impact fees, for a total of over $1.8 million in total impact fees to the town of Rolesville throughout the course of our project. These impact fees can be used for recreation facilities and transportation improvements wherever the town board sees fit. In addition, we estimate that the proposed homes will generate a total ad valorem tax revenue to the town of Rolesville alone for $410,000 each and every year. In regards to our zoning, We meet all the requirements of the newly approved R3 zoning district. Our proposal complies with the Town of Rolesville Comprehensive Plan. The proposed 297 homes represents a density of 3.2 units per gross acre. We ask for you to approve our annexation petition and our accompanying rezoning to R3 with the conditions proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. State your name and address, if you would. And
My name is Jenny Fowler Wheeler. My address is Sutterton Court in Raleigh. I'm here to ask you to vote yes on annexation and rezoning. Out of respect for your time, I will be brief and I will only be speaking one time. This is about much more than this one parcel of land. Your vote will determine if Hopper Communities adds a pump station and upgrades the sewer lines, which will serve approximately 760 acres, from Roseville Road to Mitchell Mill, all the way to the back of the high school. The window of opportunity to do these upgrades and add the pump station is now. If you vote no, tearing up the streets, the sidewalks, and the yards in Callis Falls will not be an option several years from now. Everyone wants commercial. Commercial follows residential, and you can't have commercial with a well and a septic tank. As a family, we have made the decision to sell this land. If you decide that Roseville wants to benefit, we are happy to work with you. Otherwise, these dollars will flow to Wake County. I heard recently that the world has found Roseville. The gentleman with Carolina Legacy said they had found paradise here. Your vote in favor tonight will let them know that they are welcome to be part of Roseville. Again, I ask you to vote yes for the future of Roseville. Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, anyone else to speak in favor?
My name is Gary Johnson. I live at 70 Meadow Hills Drive in 4 Oaks, North Carolina. I'm representing the property at 6408 Mitchell Mill. I'm a former resident there and a future resident there, I hope. We know that progress is inevitable. We would like to, we're not opposed to this annexation. We think it's a great idea for Rolesville. It's a great idea for the community. It's going to bring, if it's not in Rolesville, it will be in the county. And we know that the municipalities provide better services for residential neighborhoods like that. So we are for that. The big thing for us also is the Parks and Recreation that the town provides and that municipalities provide that the counties do not. And so we're excited about the impact fees and what it will do, not just for that community, but for the whole community of Rolesville and for the future of Rolesville. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Was it any more in favor of? Did you have any more, Robin? Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we will move on to speakers that is in opposition. So I see Gail first. If you would step up and state your name and address, Gail.
Okay. My name is Gail Stylings, and I reside at 1512 Rolesville Road. I do have a handout that I would like to give to you, Mayor, and to the commissioners, if I may please do that now. We were advised by Kelly to do that.
Yeah. Robin, can you get those from her, please?
Hand it to the clerk.
Thank you.
You can continue.
I can continue. Okay. Many of the people that you have heard that are in favor of this proposed development do not live in Roseville or in this community. They live in Raleigh, Wilmington, Carr Lake, Wake Forest, various places. They are not going to have to deal with the downstream effects that are coming. Who is speaking in opposition? It is the people who live surrounding this property. We live out in the country. Yes, we have Zebulon and we have Wake Forest addresses. Same as the property being voted on tonight. We all live in Roseville's ETJ or future ETJ. We live here, we shop in Roseville at the Food Lion, we eat in the restaurants in Roseville. Our kids go to school in Roseville. We play sports at the Roseville's Park and Rec. Roseville is our town. It is where we all call home. We are concerned about the traffic and congestion coming from Roseville Road and Mitchell Mill Road. Please let us wait and see what happens to what happens. Please wait and let us see what types of traffic conditions these other two enormous communities are going to bring the point in Kalis that will bring to our little country roads. Each commissioner should have received a copy of a petition that consists of all the adjoining landowners or those within 100 feet of the proposed Hopper development. 20 of the 25 have signed the petition in opposition of annexation and rezoning of this property. That is 80% are in opposition. There was one owner that did not want to sign. One owner is deceased. 3 we were not able to locate, or we didn't have contact information. Beyond that, we also have an overwhelming number of community members that are in opposition of the annexation and rezoning, as indicated by a general petition that's signed by community members, which we just presented to the mayor. We have a total of 180 signatures on that petition. This is not a personal vendetta. We all want to protect our investments in what is congruous to our surrounding area. For those of us that live in the community, we've worked hard to have our homes and to have our land. We are very passionate about the concerns we have put forth this board tonight. We have never, ever said that we do not want the Fowlers and Wheelers to sell or develop their property. The opposition has always been density in the traffic congestion, which will bring added traffic to our 2-lane, 2-mile stretch of road. Last week, I decided to do my own informal traffic study. For example, on Wednesday, November 11th at 2:15 p.m. to 2:40 p.m., I counted 125 vehicles in 20 minutes. Mind you, Roseville High School is not in session, and this is in the middle of the week, not during rush or peak times, and during a pandemic as well. I also counted traffic at non-peak times in 10-minute intervals, and the average count was 60 to 80 cars that passed. There are times now that I cannot even pull onto Roseville Road from my driveway.
Gail, we're going to have to.
Please vote no to tonight's annexation and zoning request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate
Sure thing.
that. Thanks. Okay. Next one, come up. If you would state your name and address for us, please.
Hi there, my name is Minda Sportsman. I live at 3809 Arbor Rose Lane, Zebulon. We do not oppose development. If Hopper Communities were here tonight requesting that this property be annexed and we're requesting a zoning to R1, I can promise you that this would be a really quick night for everyone because none of us are here to speak in opposition. While some of us do come from a neighboring farming family with farmland, most of us do not. We did not inherit our property, we purchased our properties from developers, builders who purchased farmland to develop neighborhoods. We are thankful for that process and we do not oppose the development of farmland around us. We welcome developments of any new neighborhoods around us, however, only at a density that makes sense out in the country. It is not smart growth to plan your highest density neighborhoods with a high percentage of them being townhomes from the furthest part of your downtown area. The roads and infrastructure in this area cannot support them, and we do not need or want townhomes in the country. That is the main opposition, is the townhomes being put on this property. I do not know the families who are selling their land, but I'm sure they are wonderful people, and we hope that they're successful in selling their land and getting as much money as they can for it. Because we all know Raleigh's out of land, and developers are left and right are going to be knocking down their door to purchase this land. We just ask that you to please wait for the right development that comes, and one that fits in Roseville's future's land and surrounding neighborhoods. We're depending on you to preserve the way of life that we have all chosen, and please vote no tonight in annexation and rezoning request, and take into consideration all of the emails, postcards, phone calls, and the petition as well, just to stop these townhouses. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. If you would step up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hey, my name is Michelle Rorick, and I live at 3624 Nether Ridge Road, and hopefully this is the last time I'm going to be here tonight. Woohoo! Okay. All right, so tonight the developer tried to convince you that this development was going to be medium density. They tried to convince you that this fits into Roseville's comprehensive plan. When you hear R3, what do you think about? The UDO states that the R3 residential is for high density. This is not medium density being requested. Roseville's own definition for medium density residential found in the comprehensive plan states it is predominantly single family residential. This is not what is being proposed by Hopper tonight. They are requesting R3. R3 is the highest density and the highest density zoning available in Roseville's zoning options. High-density populations should be developed around community centers consisting of grocery stores, services, recreation, shopping, and public transportation. If you were to drive out to this property and look around, it's not even close to anything that I just described. All right, so I'm going to leave you tonight with a quote from a very smart man by the name of Ronnie Curran. But I think these big density things, big townhouse communities and apartment communities, it needs to be close to a transportation hub, like mass buses and stuff like that. To put one way out in the country, I don't think that's smart growth, really. If you were going to put one, it needs to be somewhere where people can commute and things like that. This property is about as far away from Main Street as you can get on Roseville's future land map. High-density townhomes have no place out there. We do not need townhomes in the country. For those of you that may be on the fence, you do not have to say yes tonight. It is okay to say no. Once the decision is made, it cannot be undone. Wendell just said no to a similar annexation and rezoning request just a couple months ago. We are asking you to vote no tonight and to vote no to the rezoning to the R3, which allows for townhomes. Hey, and I spent a good 3 hours making this up, so y'all at least spend like a minute looking at it or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Rub on it, something. 3 hours. Okay, y'all have a good night.
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you. Appreciate that. Hey, Hal, come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Harold Stallings, and I live at 1512 Rolesville Road. And my comments tonight are these. This projected development is not consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods. It is not in harmony with the scale, bulk, coverage density, and character of the surrounding neighborhoods. It is not even comparable with Kalis Falls, which is just across the street. So what is the difference in this proposed neighborhood versus Kalis Falls? Kalis Falls is high density. But if you pull up the site plan for Kalis and the site plan for Hooper, you will see that Kalis has planned what looks like it will be an enjoyable neighborhood to live in and visibly pleasing to the surrounding area. Hopper Communities has jam-packed as many units on this property as they can possibly fit. And if you look at your agenda provided tonight on page 119, the only open area in the entire property are those that have soils that are prone to flooding where building is not allowed. It is green space that cannot be used. Why? Because it's swamp. The topography is so low that it will always hold water, and there won't be a place where kids from the neighborhood will be able to play together. There's little to no area in this development for the occupants to enjoy. Now look at the site plan for Kalis. It is spread out over 284 acres, has planned large amounts of open space between the clusters of housing. Kalis has 34% open space compared to Hopper, which will be 17%, which consists of swampland. If we look at the number of townhomes compared to single-family homes, Kalis has less than 18% townhouses planned for their community. And if we compare that to Hopper, they have a Hopper, which has over 40% townhomes. Hopper is planning to build almost as many townhomes as single-family homes. Lastly, the density, which is the homes per acre. The density for Kalis is 1.9, and the density for Hopper is 3.25. Shouldn't the density decrease the farther out in the country you go? Bottom line is this: it is overpopulated with townhomes. It does not fit with the surrounding neighborhoods and the countryside. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Herb.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Ron.
that.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Guess who's back?
Okay, thank you. Step up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, sure. My name's Curtis Rorick, R-O-E-R-I-C-K, and I live at 3624 Nether Ridge Road. I wanted to speak tonight about the quantity over the quality. I'm sure I know the developer has been trying to convince you guys that this is going to be a very nice neighborhood. I attended the last community meeting where we discussed design standards. Here's what we learned from the developer. We were told that the foundation types would be block foundations or stem walls. A stem wall, if you didn't know, is a cinder block perimeter filled with gravel, then concrete poured on top, basically creating an elevated slab. What other standards did we discuss? None. That was it. Foundation types were the only quality standard that the developer was committed to. We actually did discuss others, but that's the only one they committed to. And why is that? They know they are going to go with the cheapest possible materials and would not agree to any other upgrades to these materials when they were requested. They wouldn't commit to any type of siding or countertop material or shingle material or landscaping or anything else that we asked them about. When Kalis was approved, they committed to these in their proposal. Kalis is also providing choice fencing selected by the surrounding property owners, which Hopper said no when it was requested. Beth Trejo stated in the same meeting that she has been informed by town officials that the town of Roseville is not interested in high-end housing, but that the town is looking for more low-income housing options, and that is what they intended to provide. We are terrified this is going to bring down the property value in our area and that this neighborhood is going to turn into a rental community. We are concerned about all aspects of a community that are typically associated with low-income housing. Hopper has jam-packed as many units as they possibly could into that piece of property. They have maxed out the number of townhomes that R3 allows. Townhomes do not belong out in the country. Roseville's comprehensive plan states that the construction materials and design features should emphasize quality over quantity, and that is not what we are hearing from Hopper. Just looking at the site plan, you can see they are only concerned with the quantity. There is no quality being promised. So, if this development doesn't meet the town's comprehensive plan standards and it doesn't meet the neighborhood community standards, why would we even be considering this? Please vote tonight to turn down this community and hold to the standards that this town has previously decided on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, you.
Thanks. Okay, any more to speak? Come up. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Barbara Jones, and I live on Lassiter Road down near the rock quarry. Let's talk about traffic. Traffic on two-lane roads, it's going to be a disaster. The only road improvements the developer has agreed to is to put turn lanes for the people to get into the developments. I'm sure the developer has tried to convince you that they have done a traffic study, and that traffic on Roseville's two-lane roads with the already approved 1,500 homes and the additional 300 proposed tonight is going to be just fine. In the 721 meeting, 3 of the commissioners here agreed that that developers contract with traffic firms that will give them the results they want. That's the firm's agenda, to satisfy their client, not us. They get what they want, and then they leave. But what happens down the road? We are going to be the ones sitting in traffic, waiting to pull out onto the bypass to even be able to get to downtown Rolesville. Getting to work, kids to school, it's going to be a nightmare. Curtis Roderick previously provided you all with the traffic statistics on August the 4th with the additional traffic from the Point, Calais Falls, and the proposed Hopper communities there will be an additional 39 vehicles per minute making that U-turn on the bypass to go south on 401. This does not include the vehicles that are already using the bypass during the 90-minute rush hour. This is going to be a dangerous situation for everyone in this community. It's going to add to an already congested Mitchell Mill and 401 intersection for people going to work. If you look at the traffic study, these two intersections were not even included, and they are major intersections leading into Raleigh. I drove those roads for many years working in Raleigh. Some of the folks still do. This is just going to make that commute longer and much more dangerous. These country roads and intersections cannot handle this high-density development being proposed. Please vote no to annexation and vote no to rezoning to R3, which allows for more townhomes. We don't need townhomes out in the country. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, come in. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kristen Wheelis, address 3629 Netheridge Road, Zebulon, North Carolina, 27597. Okay, I am here to talk to you about transportation. So the UDO states that the R3 residential district is for pedestrian-friendly residential purposes. The comprehensive plan also states a focus on single-family detached housing styles in outlying areas and smaller lots or multifamily developments closer to Main Street. Please understand tonight, this property is 4.5 miles away from Main Street in Roseville. The comprehensive plan also states that locations for this kind of development should be in areas where walking or with ready access to highway capacity, downtown core or highway intersection, and can also accommodate and disperse traffic loads. This property reaches to the far edges of Roseville future land use map and is currently county land. There are no public amenities within walking distance, not even a gas station that would be safe to walk to. The rezoning of this parcel to R3 is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, as it states the future land use for this area should be medium density, not high density. High density communities rely on community transportation. I know we've already quoted Ronnie earlier tonight, but I'll quote him again. If you look at growth models, the ideal place to put the big dense stuff is near transportation hubs. They need to be close to a major road, like directly off the bypass, rather than out in the country. Please know that we consider this property out in the country. We are over 3 miles away from the bypass. He said this because he knows that a large population of folks who live in townhomes depend on walkable communities to be able to commute. The closest bus stop to this property is 4 miles away. Folks that live in R3 should be able to walk to parks, restaurants, grocery stores, and shops. We have one gas station out there. It's over 1 mile from the property, and there isn't even a dirt shoulder on the side of the road that you could use to safely walk to that gas station. High-density townhome developments should be placed around community centers consisting of grocery stores, services, recreation, shopping, and public transportation. This is not the place for this type of development. Please vote no to annexation and R3 rezoning. As we've said before, our main issue is with the townhomes that are part of this property. So appreciate you listening tonight to each of us, and thank you for your time and your service to the community. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next, come in. State your name and address, please.
Tracy Tharp, 3604 Netheridge Road,
Zebulon, North Carolina, 27597. Okay. The property is as far as you can get from Roseville downtown area. It is not smart growth to the plan of your highest density population on the outskirts of town where there are no amenities. Not only is the proposed development going to look out of place, but traffic is going to be a nightmare for all of us on a two-lane country road. The land is currently zoned as Wake R30, which allows for a minimum of 3/4 of an acre lot. Roseville future land use states it should be a medium density, which is not what's being proposed. Developers and town keeps trying to tell you that this request is consistent with Roseville's comprehensive plan and future use plan classification, but it's not. The future land map clearly says that the area should be a medium density, but R3 is a high density. Not one aspect of this development request is in line with Roseville's vision. Note the planning board was not in agreement on this annexation request. Davion Cross, who we believe is a man that loves this community, voted against it, and we thank him for that. Tonight, we close by imploring you to vote against this request tonight. The decision you make will significantly impact our community and our way of life. We are asking each commissioner to help us by voting no on this proposed development and protect our community. Save us from this massive tidal wave of traffic congestion that will come our way. Help us maintain our way of life. Let us continue to enjoy the reasons we all either stayed or moved out here. Tonight, please vote with Davion for smart growth in Roseville. Let the town grow from the inside out, not the outside in. Thank you for your time tonight and all that you do to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
All right.
Okay, anyone else out there? Is that it? All right. Attorney, I'm going to close this one and start the next one, if that's okay with you. Okay, I will close the public hearing on case ANX 20-03. And the next item on the agenda is case MA 20-01. And I will open the public hearing and I will entertain an introduction from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As you already introduced, and I'm not going to repeat, you've already introduced the map amendment case that goes with the annexation. And let me give a little reasoning why you have the zoning case before you. This property is outside our ETJ and corporate limits. It is in the urban service area for Rolesville, agreement for voluntary annexation. But it's in the county jurisdiction. In order to, when you annex this property, we have to designate a zoning classification on the property. So that's the purpose of this request. As you've already introduced, and you have the acreage, it's been talked about before. This is the location. Again, Rolesville Road, Callis Falls subdivision, the area being annexed, if it is, and then the request for R3's conditional zoning district is the request, and it's going from the county R30 residential classification. It is vacant. There is no houses and structures on the property. Water and sewer services are available. Sewer will be extended as part of the Callis Falls development, and they will also be extending a water line all the way down to this point. And those plans have already been approved, and the right-of-ways have already been acquired at this time. So very soon, Callis Falls will be starting construction, and with that infrastructure, we'll make this availability for water and sewer services. However, it does fall away from, this is a ridge. It does drain in this direction, and they will be required when they get to the development plans to put a pump station, according to the city of Raleigh. And that pump station will be somewhere in this area right here, which is the lowest point. And those are all be installed at the developer's cost. So the current zoning is on the left. This is the limits of the ETJ plus the corporate limits, the satellite for Calais Falls that I've already mentioned earlier. This will be added in, and with R3 would be designated as R3 conditional zoning. This is the comprehensive plan. It is reported as medium density residential, and I'd like to make sure it's clear that I was looking at to the 2017 comprehensive plan in the definition of medium density, and it starts out in the very beginning as predominantly single-family uses with portions of duplex, townhomes, and multifamily residential. There are lots of tracts of density range of 3 to 5 dwelling units per gross acre, including preserved open space areas, along with limited non-residential uses under a planned unit development or form-based code provision. And currently, you don't have a form-based code yet. That's part of the new UDO rewrite.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Can I ask Danny a question? Danny, several people spoke and said that this did not comply with our comprehensive plan. You're contradicting that.
I'm just stating you the facts from the document, and then
the
there are other
facts are,
references.
you are correct.
Yes,
They
there is
have
other
given us-
references in there that references allowance of other types of uses in that district.
But our comprehensive plan allows how many units per acre, did you say?
It says for medium density to be a gross dwelling units per gross acre of 3 to 5 dwelling units per acre. And that's from the results of development.
So R30 is not considered high density,
R3,
R3.
based off of average of the density out of the development, yes, and you do have a limitation on how much can be used for multifamily and townhomes.
But they're asking for R30. I'm sorry, R3. That's
R3,
right, R3.
the R3 conditional zoning.
Okay.
Now,
And they've been misinformed. Or they are.
I don't want to try to refute to them, but I did want to make sure I make a point about the definition of what medium density was.
And I was going to ask that exact question. Can you clarify again for me clearly the definition of medium density? Because you faded out a little bit at the end. I was listening for a definitive.
Predominantly single-family dwelling uses with portions of duplex, townhomes, and multifamily residential.
So clarify those three you just said with portions of.
With portions of duplex, townhomes, or multifamily residential.
And multifamily would be like
Apartments,
apartments?
yes.
Okay, just
And
clarify.
townhomes.
Right, I got
And
the
townhomes.
townhomes, I just wanted to clarify.
So
And the-
medium allow up to 5, is that the?
It says this is for medium density or lots or tracts at a density range of 3 to 5 dwelling units per gross acre.
So 5 is the max.
In that range for medium density.
There's a 3, okay.
Thank
I just
you.
have a question too, though, real quick, and I'm not even sure you can predict this, but this opens it up for any other development to come in and put townhouses out there, correct?
It opens it up to develop this site under the R3 with the conditions they are proposing for R3 conditional zoning.
Right, but I'm saying, I'm asking you to predict, other developments can come in and do the same thing, so you can basically end up with neighborhoods full of townhomes, duplexes, and multifamily homes.
I could not predict what will come by requests in the future,
sorry.
but I can tell you from the comprehensive plan, it would be allowance of medium density residential as just described. That's the best I can answer it.
But what we are approving or not approving tonight is annexation and a zoning change. We're not approving any site plan tonight.
That's correct.
So
But you
we
are
have-
approving it, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, you are approving it with the specific conditions they have offered that's in the petition.
And you're going to go over those?
I can if you want me to go into detail, or I can leave the applicant to go and really to present those as well, but they are in your documentation there. And if I may, if that answered a lot of the questions at this point, go ahead and continue. Thank you. So the proposed map amendment application for the R3 CZ zoning district includes 10 proposed conditional zoning district requirements. They're all spelled out in the Exhibit D of the application. Key considerations are limit the zone properties not to exceed 297 dwelling units and no more than 120 of the dwelling units as townhomes. No apartments, multifamily units will be permitted. So that's off the table by this amendment and the conditions that they voluntarily offered. There's also provisions for buffer, recreation amenities, transportation improvements, and special conditions applicable to single-family homes and townhomes. So there's some criteria on that that's in there as well. I didn't try to go into all the details, but it's in the body of the text. The future land use plan adopted in 2017 comprehensive plan, as you already know, identifies this as medium density residential, and the requested zoning district as a medium density residential classification is consistent with the 2017 comprehensive plan. Primary road access will be on Rolesville Road and Mitchell Mill Road. Both are major thoroughfares. Our 2002 community transportation plan does call for Rolesville Road to be a 3-lane road improvement with curbing and sidewalks on both sides. For this site, when development, Mitchell Road is not identified in the 2002 CTP. As you know, we are working on a new community transportation plan that you'll be seeing later, hopefully in the next 3 months or less. And Mitchell Mill is included in the new comprehensive plan. I guess in 2002, this was very further out, and of course hasn't been updated in an extremely long period. But there will be road improvements from property line to property line where it butts Callis Falls. That includes curbing, widening, 90-foot right-of-way, and half of the road section. Callis Falls will also be improving the other side, which is at developer's expense.
What will be on Mitchell Mill? Same thing, or?
Mitchell Mill will be a grass swale.
Be what?
Grass swales with just turn lanes.
Okay.
Because I don't have anything to go specifically, we have adopted as a policy to require road improvements there, or has it been identified in the previous community transportation plan? That was in 2002.
Gotcha.
There's a traffic impact analysis prepared by Ray McKemp Associates, recommends Rolesville Road and Mitchell Road intersections for traffic light signalization, a full access on Rolesville Road with a left turn lane, and a full access on Mitchell Mill Road with a left turn lane. Now, they have offered in their conditions for the zoning map amendment that's identified as condition number 4, states that they, prior to the issuance of building permit for the 150 dwelling unit, the owner shall contribute at $50,000 to the town of Rolesville, but used by the town to install a traffic light at the intersection of Mitchell Mill Road and Rolesville Road. And just as a recap to the previous approved plans, you do have contributions of this intersection from the point, with the primary responsible party to do the stoplight and installation for Mass Arms at Mitchell Mill and Rolesville Road as part of Callis Falls. So some of that funds will go probably, well, if you're so blessed, would go to Callis Falls expense for putting in the intersection, that stoplight at Mitchell Mill and Rolesville Road.
And currently, that's a 4-way stop, right?
That's currently a 4-way stop. All 3 traffic studies identified that a traffic light is going to be needed there.
So both of them would be contributing towards that traffic light?
Yes, all 3 of them. And this is based off the number of units. The planning board voted 5 ayes and 1 nay to recommend to the town board of commissioners to approve the requested zoning of MA 2001 as presented, and the planning board also specifically addressed the zoning properties to be connected to the existing improved Travis Wood Court as per town policy. And if I back up just to show you where that is, so you'll know, Travis Wood Court is this street stub here, right here in the lower section, is, if you can see my dot, I hope you can. It's the lower section. That's an existing street stub, and it will be giving the 13 homes here alternate access to Rolesville Road if it comes necessary, because they can go into the development and then come back out through the entrance of this development. And that was the basis of discussion by the planning board. You got the minutes and the recommendation in your packet. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan for this property used for medium density, and it is the request of such a zoning district. Staff recommendation is to approve the rezoning request and the resolution statement of consistency to the comprehensive plan. So,
Can we go back to the vote from the planning board?
the vote of the planning board?
I saw 5 yeses and a no.
That's correct.
Do you have any commentary around the no? Like, what was the concern on the no?
That would be what was referenced in the minutes that I included in the packet.
Traffic was one of the biggest concerns.
There was discussion, yes, but I don't think he specifically identified his no. He didn't put it as any,
Why?
for the why, but there was quite a bit of discussion before that. There was one vote against it.
Because that was the night in question when it looked like 2 of them were gonna vote. All of a sudden, it changed over, and one of the more experienced, board members went on to, discuss the, yes. And that's where the issue came with the citizens next door, that no one was listening to David. But it was definitely a traffic concern. That was one of his biggest concerns that he mentioned.
And the minutes is the last part of your attachments in your agenda package. I was trying to see if I can get to the page number.
Danny, I believe you because I know you wouldn't lie to us, but the paragraph that says staff recommends approval of the rezoning request as presented, the proposed zoning district is consistent with the Rolesville Comprehensive Plan future land use map that classifies this parcel for medium density residential use. And we've had several people speak and say that it wasn't. I have a problem with that. Were they misinformed?
I'm not going to try to answer how they came to their conclusions on that, but if you read the body of the report and the several citations in there, this category fits into the category.
Okay.
And most particularly that definition term for each zoning classification of the map.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a hard part for me as well, Jackie. Because it seems like it's saying high density, medium density.
Well, we know now that high density is 5 and above, and this is 3.1 or 3.6, as they pointed out, which is medium.
3 to 5 is medium, above 5 is high density.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It says 6 to 12, to
Okay.
be specific on high density. R3, with the development results of the gross acreage, will be a medium density of less than 5. And you've seen that information coming up with the rest of the testimony, or speakers getting ready to come before you, I think.
Danny, one quick question about the acreage. For some reason, I have 95.362, and then I'm seeing 91.39. Can you just confirm which one's correct?
Well, the annexation is different.
Okay.
Annexation goes to the middle of the road.
Okay.
It includes more land.
Okay.
That's the difference in the numbers. The other is the actual parcel.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question for Danny? All right. If not, we will start taking comments from the public in favor. So, is that you first, Beth?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, again, Beth Trejos, Nelson Mullins here today on behalf of Hopper Communities. We too, in our reading of the comprehensive plan, find that this proposal is consistent with your comprehensive plan and your future land use map, which recommends a mix of uses, single family with duplexes, townhomes, or multifamily at a range of 3 to 5 units to the acre. With the proposed maximum 297 homes, we're at 3.2 units to the acre. We are proposing a mix of homes, single family and townhomes, a maximum of 120 townhomes. This allows us to, attract various types of buyers, empty nesters who are looking to downsize, young families who are starting out may find that they prefer a townhome, and then they may be able to move in this same neighborhood up to a single-family home if they choose to, the young families. Others may come in and decide, well, they want a single-family home to start with. In addition, the variety of housing types allows us to have varying price points. Now, I want to clarify, and there is no low-income housing proposed here, but there is more moderately priced, more affordable housing. Not everybody can afford a $400,000 home, so we have identified a niche and have heard that is a niche that the town is interested in pursuing as well. And we think this is sort of that missing middle housing in type and in price point. This is a conditional use zoning request, so we have conditions and commitments that are a part of the zoning. They control the density, they control the housing mix. They meet your ordinance requirements. No single-family lot will be less than 10,000 square feet. There will be no more than 15 acres of townhomes. And of course, that's in your ordinance now, and so that would be a requirement of anybody who comes forward. No project could have more than 15 acres of townhomes. We also include commitments, all of the requirements that the TIA, the traffic impact analysis that was done by our professional traffic engineer and reviewed by NCDOT in collaboration with your professional planning staff. All of the improvements that were suggested by that plan are included as conditions, including a contribution to the traffic light, which can be used in combination with the two other projects that are in this area already to facilitate the installation of that needed improvement. We also include commitments for recreational amenities, both a commitment to provide public greenway as your open space plan recommends, and private greenway trails. There'll be a pool and a cabana for the community. There'll be a playground. There'll be a dog park, all unusable land that's designed for those purposes. In terms of the homes, we have included some commitments related to the single-family homes. If they're single-story homes, they'd be at least 1,600 square feet. If they're two-story homes, they'd be at least 2,200 square feet. Townhomes would be at least 1,200 square feet. We have also included the commitments, that there be no slabs. That was what was requested. That homes would either be crawl space or stem wall, and they would include brick or stone veneers facing streets. These are the same commitments that were made by Callis Falls. We've also included commitments with regard to landscape buffers adjacent to all existing homes and to the farmland to the north. In regard to Taviston Court, as your planning director mentioned, there's an existing stub from the Woods Crossing subdivision to the south into this property that's intended to be connected when this property is developed. We have heard from the neighbors in Wood Crossing that they would prefer it not be connected. We are happy to connect it or not connect it, however you direct us. We would also be willing to dedicate the right-of-way and not build the street. You give us guidance on what you would like to see there, and we're happy to.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if that was someone's phone or the timer. I apologize.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time tonight.
State your name again for the record, please. Name and address.
Bill Harrell, 2403 Medway Drive, Raleigh, with Hopper Communities. In terms of rezoning, we began this process this time last year. Our initial proposal called for 370 homes with lots as small as 6,000 square feet, just like the Callis Falls subdivision on the other side of Rolesville Road. Since then, we have hosted 4 community meetings with the surrounding property owners, with the first meeting being on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We've also participated in multiple public meetings with you, with this board, and the planning board over the past few months. With input from you, as well as the nearby county residents, we have made the following commitments. We've reduced our proposal to 297 homes, with single-family homes on lots that are at least 10,000 square feet. We've added 20-foot wide Type A planted buffers adjacent to existing homes and along Rolesville Road and Mitchell Mill Road. We've committed to installing all road improvements recommended by our TIA, including a $50,000 contribution toward a future traffic light at Rolesville Road and Mitchell Mill Roads. We've committed to a public greenway, as shown on the town's open space and greenway plan. We've also agreed to provide private amenities within our subdivision that include private walking trails, a pool, playgrounds, and a dog park. This project includes a significant expenditure, more than $1 million, to bring water and sewer utilities and to install a pump station to serve this area, Rolesville's future planned growth corridor. The availability of public utilities constitutes significant public benefit. I did hear some comments earlier, and I know it's been discussed. I wanted to talk about the definition real briefly about medium density residential. And this is straight out of Rolesville Comprehensive Plan 2017 that was recently approved. The definition of medium density residential: predominantly single family residential uses with portions of duplex, townhome, townhouse, or multifamily residential. These are lots or tracts at a density range of 3 to 5 dwelling units per gross acre, including preserved open space areas, along with limited non-residential uses under the plan unit development or form-based code provisions. So that's medium density. So if you take our total number of units that we are conditioned our rezoning for is 297 total units, divide that by 91.5, the acreage is 3.2 units per acre. That's at the very low end of the true definition of medium density. As some other folks said earlier, high density residential, they're calling this, our project, high density. The definition of high density is 6 to 12 units per acre. That's more than double of the units that we're proposing. So I just wanted to clear that up. We have met twice with your planning board and twice received their recommendation for approval. Your planning staff recommends approval, and we ask that you approve the proposed annexation and rezoning request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. If you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Josh Ranke, 5808 Farrington Place, Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm with Ramey Kemp and Associates. I performed the traffic study for this. So very briefly, thank you for your time this evening. I did want to provide some clarification on just what a traffic impact analysis is, and then I'll get into this. I know town staff did a great job covering some of the improvements. There did sound like maybe some confusion regarding a traffic impact analysis during the annexation. So this TIA was scoped, performed to meet standards and guidelines, and reviewed by the town and NCDOT staff. It had 5 total study area intersections that were considered. We did have the adjacent developments, many of which have been discussed today, included in the analysis, as well as a growth rate in addition to that. So to get from the existing traffic volumes to the future build-out year for our site, we also included any other known developments in there. It is something, our original traffic impact analysis is about 20% higher in terms of trips compared to what they're actually proposing now in terms of the development. We did provide a traffic assessment letter that said we're still holding firm with the recommendations we had, but they are 20% higher than what's actually going to go in. We did have improvements at 3 of the 5 study area intersections, ranging from recommending signalization, where there's the money being provided towards signalization at Mitchell Mill and Rolesville Road, as well as the turn lanes at the site driveways. The other 2 intersections that were in the study area were well below the thresholds for consideration for improvements per the ordinance and NCDOT guidelines. So those are intersections that are expected to operate acceptably in the future. So kind of also one of the things I wanted to really briefly touch on is a lot of people said, well, a 2-lane road, all this traffic, it's going to be problematic. I think when we discuss these turn lanes and all, the actual capacity of a 2-lane road, if you have the turn lanes and those sort of things to get that traffic out of the through movement, is actually far higher than we'd expect to see in the future at this build-out time for this. It's just the lack of turn lanes at other areas, so that is why we are considering turn lanes at the site driveway, which will be provided, and then the signalization of Mitchell Mill and Rolesville Road. So that's all. I wanted to keep it brief. One other little since I do have a few seconds here, we did look at the no build. If our site did not go in, the delays at Mitchell Mill and Rolesville, they are considerable. They'd be about 109 seconds in the morning, 27 seconds in the evening. When you consider the build and that signalization that's going to go in with contributions from other developments and ours, we're down to 23 seconds of overall delay in the morning and 15, which is a fraction of what would be expected without the signalization that is being brought as part of our development. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But I have a quick question, though.
We'll
Not
call
yet?
them back if you
Okay,
feel
you
like
write
we
that
need to answer a question. Just don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Okay. Next person.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Steve Wheeler, 7928 Sutterton Court, Raleigh. I'm here tonight to ask that you approve this annexation and zoning of the Fowler-Wheeler property. I opted to speak one time on these two topics in the best interest of everyone's time here tonight. What happens in Rolesville matters to me and my family. My wife grew up here. Her mother and brother still live in the immediate area off of Fowler Road. This zoning request meets all the requirements of your ordinance. Single-family lots are at least 10,000 square feet. The conditions require recreation amenities and buffers adjacent to existing homes and farmland. We see a number of benefits to the town of Rolesville and to its citizens in approving this annexation and zoning request. The land will become a part of Rolesville, and the town of Rolesville will receive significant impact fees and real property tax dollars. Public utilities will be extended to serve this property and a pump station constructed. This pump station designed to serve a much larger area that is in Rolesville's growth corridor. Road improvements will be made, including a $50,000 contribution towards a traffic light at the Rolesville Road, Mitchell Mill Road intersection. Other planned developments, namely Callis Falls and the Point, are providing complementary road improvements. It is development that makes the great majority of road improvements. We have watched this area change and grow. We have to change too. Other landowners in the immediate area agree. At an earlier meeting, I provided letters of support. I was asked to leave them here for you. Letters of support from Sue Scarborough Tucker, Betsy Scarborough Wilkins, and the Moody's in support of this change. I ask tonight that you please approve this annexation and zoning of the Fowler-Wheeler property. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to the comments from the public and opposition section of the public hearing. So step up and state your name and address, please.
Hey, my name is Michelle Rorick, 3624 Nether Ridge Road. Hey, so I wasn't going to come back in here, but it looks like I did. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to clarify things because you guys had Jackie to ask the question that, hey, it sounds like we're saying that it conflicts and it doesn't. So there are several things with the comprehensive plan and the UDO that the language inside itself contradicts each other, right? So the developer went through it and they picked out the verbiage that worked for them. We went through it and picked out the verbiage that we saw that contradicted it, right? So they had the one statement. But I do want to just note, I copy and pasted this from Roseville's documentation. I didn't take this stuff out, right? So it says the definition in the UDO for R3, it says it's a district in which the principal use of the land is for high density. And so that's where we got that information. And then from the comprehensive plan, we picked and chose the things that we felt like contradicted what the request was. So it states that for medium density, predominantly single should be predominantly single family residential. And so if you look at predominantly in the dictionary, it means for the most part. And so what Hopper is suggesting tonight is they are only going to put 60% single-family houses, and there's 40% townhomes. So it didn't equate to the definition of predominantly when I looked it up in the dictionary. So all of these things are from Roseville's documentation over here on the left. And I think that's all I was going to say. Okay, thanks, y'all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Thanks.
Okay, Gail?
Do you need me to state my name and address again?
Yeah, let's keep it,
Okay.
let's keep it right.
All right.
So,
Gail Stallings, 1512 Roseville Road, Wake Forest. I just want to remind you that we have 80% of the adjoining landowners or landowners within 100 feet of this proposed development that are in opposition. We have 180 signatures from community members that are in opposition. So, I mean, I really wish you would take that into consideration. That's a pretty good amount of people that are not in favor of the annexation or the rezoning and the townhouses. And as far as Sue and Betsy Scarver, they don't even live in this area. They live in Carl Lake and Wilmington. As Mr. Wheeler just said, you know, they are in favor of. Of course they're in favor of, because they want to sell their property. It's for their own financial gain. You know, they're not going to oppose it because they do want to sell their property. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
thank you, Gail. Appreciate that. That's it? Okay. Before I close the public hearing, I think we had some comments on the website, and I had committed that we would read those. Anything committed to the website, we would read them as public hearing, being that we are in this time of COVA, and we encourage people to make their comments at the website. So if you would, Robin, read the ones that were submitted.
Mayor and Commissioners, I will be reading these comments verbatim, providing no inflection towards the comments being either positive or negative. The purpose of my reading them is to enter them into the record and acknowledge their receipt. And again, I apologize to any of the people who submitted comments if I mispronounced any of your names. To begin, Rico Glover, 1632 Rolesville Road, Wake Forest. Is it possible for the proposed subdivision to be built without street leading from Rolesville Road, direct Rolesville Road access? I know in some of the meetings, people say it would give the fire department an alternate route if traffic is bad, but I think what's really going to happen is the subdivision will cause Rolesville Road more traffic, and the fire department will still not have an alternative route because they would be endangering kids playing in the neighborhood and also become a nuisance for the residents that live in the neighborhood because of their lights and sirens. Lynn Thomas, 3813 Taviston Court, Wake Forest. Regarding AN 20-03 and MA 20-01 Fowler Wheeler property, we are not in favor of the annexation of the referenced property. We are concerned with the density of the proposed project. Thank you, Lynn and Al Thomas. Daniel Sportsman, 3809 Arbor Rose Lane, Zebulon. ANX 20-03 and MA 20-01. This property is directly in front of my house. I vote no to annexation, and most of all, we do not want the density that R3 will allow, which are townhouses. We do not want townhouses. We welcome development, but what they are proposing is not comparable to our surrounding neighborhoods. I'm voting no to annexation and to rezoning. Claiborne Watkins, 1309 Manaville Place, Raleigh. Please vote no to agenda items ANX 20-03 and MA 20-01. My family has property on Mitchell Mill Road. We are not opposed to development, however, we are opposed to this type of development. I feel this development is not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhoods. We do not need townhouses out here in the country. Traffic is already an issue in Callis Falls, and the Point have not even started construction. Please, I ask that you listen to our concerns and vote no to annexation and rezoning. Thank you. Minda Sportsman, 3809 Arbor Rose Lane, Zebulon. ANX 20-03 and MA 20-01. This property is directly in front of my house. I vote no to annexation and most of all to the density that R3 will allow, which are townhouses. We do not want townhouses. We welcome development, but what they are proposing is not comparable to our surrounding neighborhoods. I'm voting no to annexation and to rezoning. Carol Stallings, 1512 Rolesville Road, Wake Forest. Please vote no to item number ANX 20-03, annexation request by Hopper Communities Fowler Wheeler property. And please vote no to item number MA 20-01, rezoning request by Hopper Communities Fowler Wheeler property. When is enough enough? I feel we have reached a saturation point at this time, not only for Rolesville Road and Mitchell Mill Road, but also for the other side of town, Averitt Road and Jones Dairy Road. Our roads do not have the infrastructure to handle what has already been approved, much less add more units to what is already coming our way. I feel it is time to slow down, apply the brakes, sit back, and take a serious look. In my opinion, get the point from 951 units in Callis Falls with 550 units undeveloped first, and then go from there. These two developments alone on a 2-mile stretch of Rolesville Road is going to be massive, and this did not include Roseville High School traffic. Rolesville Road is already a thoroughfare from Highway 64 to number 1 and beyond. Traffic is going to be a nightmare. I also feel sorry for the folks on Mitchell Mill Road, especially from Duke's Crossroads to 401. They have no idea what is coming their way. It is going to be a tidal wave. I travel Mitchell Mill Road every day to work. My job location is only 7 miles from my home. If I do not leave my house in Rolesville by 6:30 a.m., I will be late for work at 7:30 a.m. Mind you, this is only 7 miles I have to travel, but yet I have to allow a good hour to get to work. We do not need townhouses in the country. Our community does not want this density added to what is already going to be overwhelming on our 2-mile stretch of Rolesville Road. Christine Faircloth, 3812 Taviston Court, Wake Forest. My husband Daniel Faircloth and I are opposed to annexation and rezoning of the Fowler Wheeler property. The case numbers are ANX 20-03 and MA 20-01. When we relocated to the area, we were looking for the same sort of life to which we were accustomed. We lived on a farm before 2017. Our children are here in North Carolina, and we felt the importance of being closer to them and their families. Our main priority was to live in a farming community. We were able to do that when we found Woods Crossing with farms on either side. We have neighbors of like mind. Our neighborhood is quiet, and we enjoy the space of our backyard. We are not opposed to development. We are opposed to the density that R3 will allow. We do not want townhouses in the country. Christine C. Faircloth. Excuse me. Rick Patton, 3925 Misty Pond Way, Zebulon. Case numbers ANX 20-03 and MA 20-01. I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the potential annexation of the Fowler Wheeler property and the rezoning to R3. The planned subdivision for the site is not compatible for rural Rolesville. The density proposed is absolutely insane, and will cause massive traffic congestion, safety, and environmental issues. Build this in the town of Rolesville or Wake Forest, not in the country. The environmental study professing that the water runoff will be managed in retention ponds and actually reduce the flow into Buffalo Creek during heavy rain events is ridiculous. We're not that ignorant. With the level of density requested and the corresponding roads, driveways, and rooftops, and lack of permeable grass, lawn space, this will create a significant increase in water traveling under and over Mitchell Mill Road, cutting off emergency equipment while also causing downstream environmental and property damage. Growth and change are inevitable. I'm not opposed to that, but it has to fit within our infrastructure and the rural lifestyle that those of us living in this area have chosen. We live here for a reason, so if you do proceed with the rezoning, I sincerely hope you will do the right thing and mandate a much larger lot size and keep the density to under 150 total units. Betty Woodley, 1501 Rolesville Road, Wake Forest. Please vote no to item number ANX 20-03, annexation request by Hopper Communities Fowler Wheeler property, and please vote no to item number MA 20-01, rezoning request by Hopper Communities Fowler Wheeler property. We do not need townhouses in the country. Traffic congestion is a great concern. Please develop what has already been approved before approving more developments. Our roads do not have the infrastructure to handle this volume of traffic. Thank you. Matthew Jones, 3532 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. I'm against the R3 zoning proposed for the Wheeler Fowler property. As a resident of the Mitchell Mill area, I would like to say that we welcome development and understand that growth is important to Rolesville. However, building townhouses out in the country doesn't make sense. Rezoning an area outside of the city limits an ETJ from 30,000 square foot minimum lot size to R3 with townhomes is going from one extreme to the other. We would gladly support a single-family development of R1, R2, or similar. Building a community with over 100-plus townhomes in the country with no public transportation and no immediate major road improvements seems irresponsible and not in the best interest of the community. Board members, thank you for your support on this issue, and let's keep Rolesville a wandering place to live and not a traffic headache that we all dread. Rita Gritzmacher, 3805 Arbor Rose Lane, Zebulon. We do not want annexation, and most of all, we do not want the density that R3 will allow. We do not want townhouses in the country. We welcome development, but what they are opposing is not comparable to our surrounding neighborhoods. Please vote no to annexation and to rezoning. Leslie Klinker, 3509 Tavis Wood Way, Wake Forest. With regard to Annex 20-03 and MA 20-01, we, my husband Gary Klinker and I, do not want annexation, and more importantly, we do not want the density that R3 will allow as this development moves forward. Townhouses will be out of place in this area. Development is welcome, but it should be more in keeping with the neighborhoods in the surrounding area. Tara Hooper, 3801 Taviston Court, Wake Forest. With regard to case numbers Annex 20-03 and MA 20-01, it seems irresponsible to allow approval of rezoning to R3 or annexation at this time in view of the already frightening amount of development approved for that stretch of road. Shonda Stacy, 3604 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. I have great concerns about the large residential housing development planned on Rolesville Road and Mitchell Mill Road. These areas have two-lane roads with four-way stops to allow for the transition of traffic. We do not have the infrastructure in place to allow a development plan of 8 houses per acre. This will cause congestion and strain on the current infrastructure. Aaron Jones, 3533 Nether Ridge Road in Zebulon. We welcome single-family homes in the country, not townhomes. Lee Jones, 3533 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. Development is welcomed in this area as long as it is done in a responsible manner. Townhouses next to tobacco fields is not responsible in any way, just a developer taking advantage of the situation. Townhouses belong inside city limits within walking distance of amenities for convenience. The closest business is a rundown gas station over a mile away with no sidewalks for safety. Allowing this type of development in this area is a poor decision and will do more harm than good. The people of this community are counting on you to do what's right. Thank you. Karen Washburn, 3600 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. Regarding case issue ANX 20-03, MA 20-01, we are in opposition. We welcome development, but please do not put townhomes out in the country without proper transportation, amenities close by. Single-family homes will be appropriate for this area. Thank you. Patrick Jensen, 3733 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. Hello, we are not opposed to growth, but we are opposed to townhomes in the country area that this land is located. Townhomes don't match the close-by neighborhoods. Vote down the townhomes and zoning changes. Single-family detached housing is acceptable in our area. If Rolesville wants townhomes, put them close to the bypass, not in the country. Lorraine Stevenson, 3532 Catlet Farm Road, Wake Forest. My comments are in reference to Annex 20-03, MA 20-01, which I understand will be considered for the final time tomorrow night. I'm opposed to the high density that this development will bring. I'm not opposed to development per se, but I'm opposed to the townhouses that are part of this development. Please, no townhouses in the country. Let's keep new developments with just single-family homes and similar as much as possible to the developments already existing in the surrounding area. Thank you for your consideration, Lorraine Stevenson. Andrea Sloan, 3601 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. Okay with R1 development, no R3 townhomes. Excuse me. Jason Scott, 3708 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. I welcome single-family homes, but not townhomes in the area we live. Townhomes belong in city limits. ANX 20-03, MA 20-01. Rachel Jones, 3532 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. Please, no townhomes in the country. We welcome single-family homes. Mary Scott, 3708 Nether Ridge Road, Zebulon. We welcome single-family homes in the country. Townhomes do not belong in the country.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Rhonda. Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing. And I think I had a note, Michelle, you had a question for transportation?
I did.
All right. Do you need the transportation guy back?
Yes.
Okay. Here he comes.
Should I announce?
Got a question for you,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so you had mentioned something about the seconds with and without the traffic light.
Correct.
Could you just explain that one more time?
Sure. So what we looked at is delay there. So that was an intersection that we had identified for improvements because of the significant delay. And what I was saying there is under no build conditions, whether, if our site did not go in without the traffic signal, it was looking at about 109 average seconds of delay. And it's a four-way stop. That's a lot of the adjacent development that we've heard a lot about that traffic that's coming. That's not what's going on now. That's what is projected out in the future with all of this. And in the PM, it's about 27 seconds. So the AM peak hour, meaning that peak time, the worst time in the morning, and then the PM peak hour is that worst time in the evening. And then with our site in and the traffic signal that is getting funding from other developments as well as ours, so all that traffic kind of pushes that. NCDOT has different warrants, and the more traffic that's out there, they say, yes, we need a signal in there. We agree with that, and the funding source makes that available. It's now down from 109 in the morning to about 23 average seconds of delay. So if you're arriving there, your average wait time would be 23 seconds with the signal there compared to 109. And in the PM, it's about 15 seconds of delay.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, how does that happen if you're sitting in the back of the line?
It's an average. So it takes into consideration some you might come up to the light and hit it perfectly. It's green when you arrive. It's just an average time, and that's the way the analysis is looked at, is considering the average delay at intersections. So the town's ordinance, the NCDOT guidelines all say we're looking at an average delay during the worst times of the day.
So it's DOT that also determines the time that the light is red and green as well, right?
Correct, and they'll look into the signal when they say yes, we want a signal in there. There will have to be plans that are done for that, and essentially it takes into consideration the traffic patterns out there, things like that. And you can have throughout the day, obviously, when the school is, you might have a different traffic pattern than at other points in the day, so they can kind of monitor how they'd expect that signal to work and then adjust timings and such to make sure it's working at its optimum. Obviously, during non-peak times, like in the middle of the day or something, it might be different than at 8 in the morning or things like that. So you might want to give more green time to certain approaches and adjust that throughout the day. So that's, yes, there will be design that goes into that when the signal is, when the NCDOT requires the signal.
I guess the traffic concerns me, period, in that area now and in the future. But I'm just thinking back on how there's a light on Main Street, right here on South Main Street. It's the worst light ever for one school coming out of my neighborhood to get onto South Main Street to turn left. You can be sitting there for 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm just imagining a 4-way intersection with people sitting in traffic trying to get through the light that takes forever.
And typically, I mean, in an instance like that, and I'm not familiar, I'm not going to say I've driven through it and I understand, but typically if you're waiting a long time on a minor street, it means it's a heavy mainline volume. And so there's one not too far from where I live where I'm like, yeah, I might not be too far back in the queue, right. But because it's got a lot of prioritization for the main line that has heavier traffic, I know I'm sitting there for probably upwards of 2 minutes or things like that. Usually signals top out at about 3 minutes. Usually they keep them around 90 seconds for a full cycle. It means everybody gets a turn. 120, 120 seconds or about 2 minutes would be kind of on the higher end. It's usually a very busy area if you need to have like 3 or 4 minutes for a signal. I don't know of too many around, but the wait times can be significant if you're on the more minor street. But the logic there is by providing that signal, when you have the heavy mainline volume, your wait time would have been greater without a signal, and that sometimes can lead to safety concerns. That's why, considering the signal, when you have these delays, people tend to make bigger risks if they say, I don't know when I'm going to get to go, and they turn off of, and that's why a signal is, you're going to get your turn. You might be waiting there a while, but eventually, it's going to turn green for you, whereas if you were at a stop controlled and there's a lot of traffic on the main line, so in that case, it might be something like that.
Okay, that's unfortunate too, because even the light here when you're coming out of, Burlington Mills, that light sometimes doesn't even change, but that may just be a technical error or something.
That might be, and I'm not sure if it's and once again, I don't want to speak to these because, that would be more of an NCDOT, but sometimes they have detector loops, and if you don't pull all the way up to it, it's not triggering that there's a car there. I'm not sure how that one is set up, but typically, unless if there's some significant malfunction, it will trigger. Like I said, some take a little longer depending on the area you're in. This one is going from a four-way stop, so it is something where, yes, everybody knows they get a turn because it's stopped for everybody. So not quite the same as some of these scenarios that might be out here, but it is something that the delays are starting to get very significant as a lot of these other adjacent developments go in. Whether this one does or not, this is just helps push that signal along, coming in quicker, and has a funding source where that signal DOT is going to say, yeah, that traffic's starting to add up, and we know there's money set aside for this. So it's usually quicker to pull the trigger if there's money available for a signal than if it's not fully funded, and then they have to find a funding source. So I think some gentlemen did indicate that a lot of roadway infrastructure is driven by development. It's true. A lot of times it's, hey, this comes along, you get the turn lanes. Like I said, 2-lane, the capacity gets bad when you don't have turn lanes into things, because left turning vehicles, you have to stop and wait for a gap in the main line, so now everybody backs up behind them. When you get them out of the road, have sufficient stacking for them, it's safer, it helps capacity a lot. So that is why we're looking at turn lanes at the site driveways. We saw a need for a traffic signal there, and any intersection where, and like I said, the TIA, we work with town and NCDOT staff to come up with the study area, to all the assumptions we have in it in terms of which adjacent developments, these other developments that are also being built. We include that traffic volume in our analysis for the future year. We include our traffic, and then we follow the standards and guidelines. So I know it was mentioned, like, we just create this thing and do whatever to manipulate. That's not how it works. Our product gets reviewed by the NCDOT and town staff, and they're responsible as well, and they have an ordinance and guidelines and things like that they're following, that we're following. So all along the process, we're working with the town and NCDOT, and where there are those deficiencies, we have to consider improvements, and we did at the 3 intersections where we said that's showing deficiencies. It's not a mystery that we're adding traffic, it's that we are mitigating where we're adding traffic where it becomes a concern.
Thank you, although I do believe they don't get it right all the time either, but thank you for your response, though, very much.
No problem. Anything else?
Any other questions for the transportation person before we leave?
So
All
much.
right, thank you.
I have a question for Danny.
Yeah, well, let's make sure. No more for him. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You guys want to go ahead and take a quick break now? And then we'll come back, and when we get back, I think we've took all the public comments. So if any questions for the public you have for the public or Danny, we'll take those when we come back, and then deliberation and a vote. So let's keep it brief because we've got people waiting in the next room. So let's say we'll start back in 5 minutes. Is that good enough, you think? Okay.
15.
That would be around 9:12 according to my clock here. So take a short recess. I'll call the meeting back to order. I think as we left, Commissioner Wilson had a question for the planning director, I think.
Yeah, Danny, the preliminary site plan, or whatever you call it, even though probably a concept, Exhibit A, appears to show sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Within the development?
Within the development.
That's correct.
But none on Mitchell Mill Road or Rolesville Road.
There will be none on Mitchell Mill. There will be on Roseville Road with the widening. That's from the town's cross-section.
Yeah, why wouldn't we require sidewalks on Mitchell Mill too?
Because we haven't had that to a requirement yet. It will be coming, probably with the new CTP.
Okay, so we will be able to do that if and when we approve a site plan?
You got a problem of getting that adopted as a policy with some standards for Mitchell Mill that hasn't been identified in the old 2002 Community Transportation Plan. The best way to answer your question is it's not in the current, in effect, 2002 Community Transportation Plan for Mitchell Mill Road.
Okay.
It was not included in the study. It was not in the study area.
So we're not approving the site plan tonight anyway.
That's correct.
So if we wanted to change it between now and then, or delay approval of the site plan until we got what we wanted in it, we could do that.
I'll leave that to a question of dealing with then, because you're dealing with specs and standards. That's administrative approval.
Mr. Attorney?
I don't know that we know the status of their site plan. Obviously, that would not have been submitted yet, as the zoning and the annexation have not yet been addressed. At the time a site plan application comes in, that site plan would have to at minimum meet all the objective standards of the ordinance, as well as all of the standards necessary to meet the quasi-judicial standards of the ordinance, which are more subjective standards. So it probably will relate to timing and what the ordinance says at the time, what studies are in place at the time. It's always possible that the economy could change and this property might not be developed for a period of time. There's no way for us to know. But whatever the rules are at that time would be what the staff would require for that administrative approval.
But currently it's based on the 2002, so if the site plan comes back to us, we're stuck.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Any applicant would come in and have to conform to the standards of the town as they are written today.
We couldn't put a policy in place if we do not have an updated transportation plan, because we can't keep getting stuck by that same plan.
That plan?
17, 18 years?
Yeah, and as I said, we're trying to get you the draft community transportation plan very soon, wrapping up a few more steps, a few more things in the document, and get that presented to you and take it for public comment. And it does include road improvements on Mitchell Mill Road.
So if we don't have that in time,
That's correct.
then can we set a policy to make some changes?
You've got a couple of possibilities. You could amend the current 2002 plan. And if that were amended before the site plan application were to come in, the law would be what the law was on the day that the engineer tried to prepare the standard. That would be one way to go about it. Another would be, if this is an item that is important to the board and perhaps is important to the applicant as well, you could see whether this is a condition that they would be willing to add to their rezoning application to add such a sidewalk to the Mitchell Mill approach. You cannot impose conditions, but the applicant can always offer them if they understand that that's important to you. There's no way to know without inquiring.
It is important to me. Okay, and I would like to know if it's important to the other board members before we vote on this.
But I also need clarity though, because it looks like this is a concept of the neighborhood that I see here. It's not an actual site plan.
That is not a site plan. You are not considering that site plan. This is a rezoning case. A site plan will come in at some later time. That's purely illustrative.
But a Picture's worth 1,000 words, and
It's-
it's here as a public document.
That is an example of one thing that could be done given the conditions that have been imposed upon the site, as well as giving you a commitment as to certain items. I believe they have committed to installing, Danny, help me, open space and greenway in accordance with the illustrative plan. So those two things are fixed. When their site plan comes in, the greenway and open space will be as shown on that illustrative plan. Things like the lots are not part of the rezoning.
But if I'm a developer sitting in that next room over there and I don't want to put these in there, I'm gonna see if I can have my site plan to Danny in a week.
And
See what I'm saying?
I think their attorney would like to come speak to you on your question.
Okay, please.
What's the open space? I think I have one question for you first.
Okay. I'll be glad. Let me go ahead and take care of this one right quick.
Yeah, I just want to know if it's changes.
Traditionally, a picture would not be part of a rezoning case. You were making a map amendment to essentially change the color on the map, together with conditions that may have been offered by the applicant. For example, one of the most important conditions in this case, as I understand it, is that they have capped the density for the number of units that they can build on this site. If you had done this as a standard general zoning case, an owner of this property could build out to the maximum with no cap. But this proposal includes a cap, which is a condition on what would otherwise be allowed. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, someone requests to
There was a
answer
request by Commissioner Wilson.
question.
Please.
For Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, we're willing to, for our frontage on Mitchell Mill, to build sidewalk as a condition of our zoning, if you would like for us to.
Okay. I would like one. The board, is there a consensus? There is a consensus.
Okay.
Danny, we would like that to be a condition.
And you just heard them verbally identify to you that they're consenting to that.
Okay.
So we'll add that
Michelle, you have a
condition.
question?
Oh, I do, but it's not about sidewalks.
Okay, let's let them hang here in case we have more questions. Okay?
All right.
Oh, okay, so got the cap that you have on the amount of units. So you wouldn't have the townhomes, correct, if you were able to build the houses on smaller lots? I'm just trying to remember. Because the townhouses do decide.
So we have always had a component of townhomes in our proposal. But it is the number of units that drive the developability of the site, particularly given the significant infrastructure improvements that are required with the pump station on this site. So we do need an element of townhomes. Our original proposal was 370 total lots. It included many more single-family homes with varied lot sizes, some as small as 6,000 square feet, and some were much larger. But in approving the amendment to the R3 district, you included a requirement that the lots be at least 10,000 square feet. And so we have adjusted our plan to accommodate that. We did not increase the number of townhomes. In fact, the area of townhomes, which is, a small percentage of the total site, about 92 acres is the total site, only 15 acres would be townhomes. So it is, a small portion of the land area that's being utilized for townhomes.
Yeah. And Michelle,
Yes.
I don't want less than 10,000 square foot lots, okay? It's a personal opinion, and that's what these are, okay? I don't have a problem with townhomes, and I'll tell you why. A lot of the comments were almost prejudiced or discriminatory when it comes to a townhome. Are we saying a person that lives in a townhome is going to lower my value because they're not as good as we are? And I have a problem with that. The other problem is townhomes out in the country. Every city is growing. Forestford Road used to be out in the country. Mitchell Mill Road at this intersection in due time will no longer be out in the country, and that's a fact. and we all know it. Okay?
Well, Jackie, my concern is not that I don't like the idea of the townhome. I just feel like there's going to be lost control once if this is approved for, what is the percentage? 15, no more than 15% can be townhomes? And that's what my concern is.
15 acres. 15 acres.
Acres,
Yes.
okay. I just see that as a traffic problem moving forward, even though it hasn't happened.
Well,
I
a
just
traffic study
consider
will uncover that.
Say it again?
A traffic study will uncover that.
And also, just think, you got a chance to get it right in the UDO rewrite too.
And that's right. When we get to that, that's going to change a lot of things. And I'm looking forward
So
to
it's not the
this
townhouses,
rewriting
Beth,
this
just so you
UDO.
know that. Not your townhouses, just future townhouses. But I know I can't base my decision on. Have not happened.
Well, we also have townhouses in Callis Falls and the Point too. So I mean, what's defined as the country?
Oh, I'm
'Cause
not.
It's right across. But I'm saying like it's right across the street. So I mean,
It's right, there's a highway that separates that.
right? Yeah.
I know, that's what I'm saying, it's just building more and
Right.
more, so that's what my concern is, that is a lot more traffic. So, I don't, I'm not sure how you get around that,
Right.
if you can get around it, but that was just my concern. Every development's gonna come in, I mean, I appreciate the efforts of the price points, and trying to be more inclusive, but I'm just trying to figure out the traffic. I mean, his, I forget his name, was it Josh? His definition of having a light, not having a light, there's still gonna be a lot of traffic. And not to blame it on any one development, but that's just a concern that I have. That's it, thank you.
Okay, let's get our questions out. So, any questions for Danny, director, or the developers while they're here?
So the attorney stated earlier that the open space will be fixed, not changeable from this point forward, if this is approved. Is that correct?
I'll leave that statement to her, but the ordinance require, the open space is defined in your UDO under 10% for the subdivision and 15% for townhomes. And you also have environmental features out there such as stream buffers and wetlands that normally goes into open space as well. So an open space number depends on the site, but at a minimum for single family is 10%, with half of that being developable. And for townhomes, it's 15% of the acreage of the townhome area, with half of that, a third of that being improved recreation. And that's specifically from the UDO.
So that was algebra to me, so let's break that down to addition. So when I'm looking at Hopper communities, and correct me if I'm wrong, what is the percentage of open space that's being proposed today? That's what I'm not.
Well, you have a concept, but you don't have an official plan today. You have the conditions that were outlined in there, and there are specific conditions dealing with recreation, greenway trail, development, and so on like that. And that's what goes,
Percentage in the concept. I'm looking for a number.
I don't know that number.
I'm looking for that number, and I want to know how that number compares to Callis and the Point.
Is your mic on?
Oh, probably not. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Everybody can't hear you if our mic's on.
Well, my
so.
question is, I want to know what the percentage of open space, the actual number is for Hopper proposed communities, what's being proposed tonight in the concept or in the notes, because I didn't see it or I missed it, and how that compares to Callis as well as the Point.
I cannot provide the
I
answer.
need to know that information, because it's
Commissioner
hard to
Sutton.
make a call without doing that.
Commissioner Sutton, there were a couple of conditions that were in the applicant's petition for a rezoning.
Okay.
And I was recalling that a couple of those referenced the illustrative map. That was the scope of my point. That is, to the extent that the applicant has proposed and committed to a condition and it references the map is binding for that purpose, but only for that purpose. I don't recall.
So So I need those numbers.
We've got the applicant
Gotta
here,
find 'em.
but again, they haven't submitted their site plan yet. This is a rezoning, so they haven't necessarily committed to, and I look to the planning staff, to any particular open space percentage other than what is either required by the ordinance, as Danny just provided, or an additional amount as may have been conditioned in their application. And my memory was that they had committed to a greenway or something along those lines, and so I was looking for assistance from the planning staff.
So if there's a commitment that we're making that is binding going forward, I need to confirm that tonight, not wait until later and say, oh, that was binding at the last meeting. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Danny, can you find in the package where the list of zoning conditions is located?
That's what I'm doing as I speak.
I have dug through, I can't find it.
According to my notes.
It's at the lower part of
open
the
space-
application, which is the very beginning.
Are you looking at this? This was provided by the residents. This is not from our ordinance. I saw that too.
Yeah, starting page 99 in the packet is the Exhibit D. Now, I don't recall anywhere in there it references specifically how much open space, but condition number 3 deals with recreation amenities. That they've identified to apply.
So there's no percentage of open space that is in this request?
Beyond what's in the Unified Development Ordinance.
Yeah, they have to meet the minimums, but there's no specific percentage.
10% of the acreage in the residential portion has to be open space. 15% of the townhomes has to be open space. So that includes the space around the units, the yards, and so on like that.
So does that mean it's 25% for the whole development?
Depends on the acreage of the two numbers. It's the ratio. Without knowing that ratio, I cannot give you an answer.
So we're not committing to those?
You're not
numbers
committing
tonight?
to any acreage beyond the UDO requirements.
Madam Commissioner, condition number 3 references the Exhibit 1. That's the recreational amenities. So the applicant is binding themselves to the Exhibit 1 map as to those issues. And I'm continuing to review. But the scope of the town attorney's point was solely to keep us between the lanes on the road. We cannot rely upon Exhibit 1 as a site plan because it is not. It is not being conditioned in its entirety. Nor is it some surplusage that should be completely ignored because it ties into some of the conditions. But all of these conditions would be more than what the town was used to seeing before, which were general zoning cases, where the only thing you would consider was R3.
So my concern is the consistency of this development with the other ones that we've also approved along Rolesville Road. What that open space has been relatively, I'm looking at that, what that open space is and what the percentage of dwelling units are. That's what I'm looking at.
And admittedly, I think that's we can approximate it, maybe the staff can approximate it, but there's going to be some challenge to doing that as this application did not come in as a PUD. And we all know why. So because it didn't come in all together as one shot, you're not seeing it all together. But what you are being afforded is an opportunity to have this casual discussion and an opportunity to work through the steps slowly and avoid perhaps unnecessary or undesired levels of density without having a discussion of it.
And the minimum density requirement for R3 is 10%?
Open space for single family is 10% of the open space portion of the, single-family acreage portion, 15% for townhomes.
And all the blue line streams has to have 25-foot buffers on both sides.
50-foot stream buffers from the stream bank.
And I know it's a blue line that goes kind of all the way through this one. So
And subject to any ponds.
that's required open space, whatever that 100 Is it 100 foot when you add them together?
On both sides, it's 50 feet from the stream bank that could be narrower or wider than 100 feet.
Is that
But you
included in the
kinda-
open
You kind of
space,
see
though?
that on the site plan.
That's just Neuse River repairing stream buffer
In
requirements.
addition to, yeah.
I'm just trying to get a number. So I heard 25%, then you start talking about the buffers. But I heard you say, Paul, it's not included in the 25%. The buffers are not, correct?
For the stream.
The stream buffers potentially normally go into open space because it's restricted development space. You cannot build into it.
It would be a math error to add 15 to 10 under the ordinance.
That's why I'm trying to get.
You're more in the range. So if they've provided 15 acres of townhome space and 15% of that needs to be open space, that's 2.25 acres. That's lawyer math, but close. If the remainder is 80 acres and 10% of that needs to be open space, that's 8. So that's 10.25 acres over 91, what is that, 11%? Everybody nod your head. Make me feel
It's
better.
close enough.
Thanks.
It's close. But I understand your question. I just don't have an answer beyond what the attorney's already pointed out.
I was just comparing it to the other communities on the same street.
Well, he's correct that it was
Which is
our
different
PUDs.
zoning on its own, because that's.
It's different zoning.
Does a decision have to be made tonight? I'm not saying that it won't be, I'm just asking.
What?
The goal is to make a decision tonight.
And we can, discuss the requirements of the conditions if you want to. If you got open space condition you want in there, we can discuss that or whatever.
That'd be part of the zoning. Right, yeah. So we can consider the annexation first, and then work with that if that passes to be part of the zoning.
Had a number.
Yeah, I think it needs to be higher, of course, the open space. But also, the point that we have in our comprehensive plan says residential is, medium density is predominantly single-family residential. When I read that same thing, I said predominantly, and when I look at the percentage split, the 60-40 split, that doesn't feel predominant to me on single-family homes. So those are my only two concerns. The open space should be more, in my opinion. Obviously, building quality like we have been in Roseville, as well as the, looking at the single-family homes and the predominance of single-family homes within R3 that we set out, that we approved, what R3 looks like.
Are you saying that single family is not predominantly what's being offered in
Yeah,
this development?
60% doesn't feel predominant to me. What feels predominant to me is more like 75, 80% feels like predominant.
Wouldn't anything over 50% be predominant?
There, could be a majority, but not, because you do 51, that.
There's no standard
Political
set
math.
for that. How do you define that?
Right, that's what I was gonna say. How do we define predominant?
Yeah, I think when we did the R3, we find the townhomes as a maximum you could do, which was 15 acres. We didn't want it bigger than that. So if it's the smaller the size of the property, the bigger it can be,
Others have opinions. I've given mine.
Yep. Any other questions for any of the folks here?
Quick question on the map, the upper portion of the property on Mitchell Mill Road kind of sits in a little bit right there. That's on 87. I guess it's just a property line. I just wanted to verify if that's just a set in of property line or what that is.
You're talking about that offset?
Yeah.
In Mitchell Mill, that is in separate ownership.
Okay.
That's why the line's going, and it will be the town limits. That little strip on that side is not going to be annexed.
Okay.
And then I have to make a point with what the condition they just offered. The question is, what are you going to do with the gap?
Yeah.
Gap starts where?
There's a gap where that property is on Mitchell Mill Road.
It's like that little inset right there. You'll have sidewalk up to it, and then you'll have sidewalk at the very end of it, but you won't have anything in between that.
Why can't you go behind it? Why can't you go around it?
But that's, we have to address the question when we get to the plan.
Which gap are you referring to again? I have the map.
Talking about, we
This
just
map
pointed
doesn't
out there,
really-
Danny. The
Give me a
rectangle.
second, I'll try to enlarge this. We're talking about this piece right here. There'll be a sidewalk, what the condition, and then the piece right there at the fronts.
Why can't you put a sidewalk up against?
You can go into the open space, yes. Right here on Mitchell Mill.
Page 87.
And GIS has the boundary different from what their map is. I would assume their map is more accurate than GIS, because they would have done the verification of their property lines. So please don't trust the GIS for the boundary there, except I know there's a gap.
But because of the right away from road, that's unusable land anyway.
It's a very narrow strip.
Yeah, we could condemn it if we had
I
to.
just want to make sure you're aware of that. It's all the same.
Okay, kind of recap where we're at. We've added condition to add sidewalks, required sidewalks, on the Mitchell Mill, area there. Is any other discussion, any other conditions, anybody?
I just have one last question. I know it came up in the planning board meeting. The road in the subdivision that they were talking about for the fire trucks, I'm not really sure. Do you know what road I'm referring to?
You talking about the connection?
Travis Wood or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it'd probably be good for this board to make a decision on whether we want to connect to the county. It's the county subdivision there, and I think it was offered by, if I remember, it was offered in testimony that they're willing to give the right of way and don't have to pave it if the citizens don't want it paved. But may want to show that on the map so everybody can see what they're talking about, because it did come up in the public hearing comments tonight. But I think the
Right
folks
there.
that lives there is asking not to make that connection to their neighborhood, which is Traviston Court or something like that.
Travis Wood.
Yeah, if you look on page 103, you can kind of see where that connection's at too.
I don't have that up there. I can put it over the,
Yeah, if you look at the map,
I can
it's
switch it.
kind of, well, y'all see it. So,
It's Travis.
So that road
Travis
was for
Wood Way is
emergency?
the crossing.
no, it's not. It's just a connection. It's just, I guess if you need it for emergency, it could be, but they got other connections in there too. I think that was brought up by one of the planning board members, that it would be another way to get in there if it was an emergency situation.
it was discussed by the planning board members.
I think
It was included in their
one of the
motion
planning board members that was
recommendation
fire department.
to do the connection.
But that's kind of up to us, I think they recommended leaving it in there, Danny, is that what if I remember?
They recommend doing the connection.
So do we need it for fire and safety purposes?
Your advantage is that you have another entrance to serve that county section. If their intersection gets blocked, they're blocked in.
How many other entrances are there? I guess I should phrase the question differently.
I think what the
One.
guy was saying, it'd do more for the existing subdivision than it would be for the new one. In other words, it's another way for them to get in to them, the one that's already there.
For the existing
Right.
subdivision?
That's right.
But they're asking not to put it in, but it's,
Probably afraid of traffic coming through there and going out
No,
there.
I'm saying, why would the existing want to go into the proposed?
They can get out on Roseville Road coming towards Roseville quicker.
They don't want that, do they, the existing
I'm
neighborhood?
saying they don't, they're
No, they
saying
don't
they don't
want it.
want it.
I would.
They want to leave it like it is.
No, they don't.
The Taviston Court stub out exists as a remnant from the county approval of that subdivision under county policy to stub out to neighboring undeveloped parcels. So the idea as a planning concept is that when neighboring parcels are developed, those connections can be made to provide interconnectivity. That's why it's there. But it is certainly not popular, as we understand from the planning board meeting, with the Taviston Court residents. And it's my understanding that the applicant is willing to take direction from the town as to whether to make that connection or not, because the applicant does not need it for their project.
Yes, see, the neighborhood that's there now has only one way in and one way out. Not the new neighborhood, the one that's there now.
They don't have an out on Mitchell Mill?
They only have one entrance, which is that little, right there on the left
So
side.
what the planning board member said, it's good for that county neighborhood to have two ways in, but they said they don't want two ways in.
A second entrance is not required because it's fewer than 30 homes. I believe that Taviston Court section is 12 homes, something along
13.
those. 13. Thank you, Danny.
Would that be a decision that would have to be made tonight?
Not necessarily, because you still got the preliminary plat coming in, whether you could do that connection or not. If you direct it now as a condition, then that's what we'd have to do, is add it as a condition, not to do it. You approve the, not doing the connection.
I mean, it could also be built and blocked, right? Theoretically, if we wanted
If it's a public road, that could be,
it would have to connect. Okay.
if you're gonna make it a public road.
I'd hate to have that right away and not build it, and then later on have to come back in and build it.
Well, that's true. So your question is whether to do the connection or not,
Right.
and not do the stub. That's really the bottom line. If you decide not to do the connection, we would not build that road improvement and would cut that out and let them put that into lots. Because I agree with you, you don't want to do the dedication
Danny,
and
can you
not.
remove your mask?
I'm
so we
sorry.
can hear you clear?
I apologize.
I can't really hear you.
I apologize. You don't want to go create the dedication and not have the road improvement. So if you were to choose to not do the connection, we would not dedicate that stub going to Travis Court and let the lots go to the middle of that road.
I don't understand that. I mean, for the future need, why wouldn't you let it be dedicated? I mean, why would we not dedicate it? I don't understand the theory behind
Well, are you going to do a payment in lieu on it for road improvements?
it. No, I mean, we may not never need it, but
Whatever you direct. You're
I think it's always safer to have two ways in and out.
But again, the attorney said it's not required for subdivisions under 30 lots or something.
And how long's that subdivision been there?
I don't know the history behind that subdivision.
I'm okay as long as the proposed development has two ways in, two ways in and out.
I am too.
It does.
I just don't see, if the attorney has stated to us, if it's under 30 lots, and they have fire and safety now that could get in there, what's the issue? I don't know what the issue is, let me say it that way.
So if there's a line of traffic and emergency vehicles cannot get down that road, this other road could be an option.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing. Like if you had like a accident at the new entrance we're putting in now, at least they'd be able to come up from the bottom, go through there, and go through that existing neighborhood to go into that neighborhood if they had to. If there was something to block that other intersection.
But they still wouldn't have access to those other streets. They'd still have to go for the other side. The accidents are on the other side.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
yeah.
But it doesn't go all the way through the neighborhood. If it went all the way through the neighborhood, it would make more
I
logical
think
sense.
there may be 3 different neighborhoods. I'm not sure how that is.
Or it looks like 3 different cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
That one sits back.
This is the only one that has a street stub. The other ones are just cul-de-sacs that go on to Mitchell Mill or to, mainly Mitchell Mill, Rolesville Road.
This phase of Woods Crossing subdivision was platted in 2006.
Which subdivision is that?
Woods Crossing.
Woods Crossing, 2006.
Without the additional entrance. And
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that benefits them, so if that neighborhood doesn't want that, then,
Take it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody's saying that, but Shale, you want to...
I just, I mean, I get they don't want it, and there's probably reasons why, because it's gonna interrupt. Like somebody said, their kids playing, and I forget what the other reasons were. But to me, I just know that road is gonna have a lot of traffic on it, and you always wanna make sure you can get in and out of, whichever community needs the service.
It doesn't go all the way through though. So even if we opened it up and they came through that neighborhood, they could only access that one side. I'm looking at the other map. Can you see it
Yeah.
from that map? But the Taviswood and
Cul-de-sacs is
Taviston,
independent.
I'm sorry?
You're saying the two cul-de-sacs, you can't get.
Right, you couldn't get to those that way anyway, so you're still not able to access the
This,
other
the
portion.
connection will give you a second access within Wood Crossing subdivision. Will give them another way out if their intersection is blocked.
Right, but it's not all the streets, Danny. That's my.
Yeah, it doesn't include the other cul-de-sacs,
Right.
which is your point. And that we can't change.
I don't think you can see it, Michelle,
I
what I'm
can't,
referring
because
to.
I'm like.
It's the
what
other
what
map,
I see
Danny.
now is that road connects everywhere.
Page 87, if you go back.
Let me
to
switch back to
well,
the
ours
zoning
is
map.
Page 87.
You're referring to these here.
Make it bigger?
That's as big as I can make
Oh.
it.
Look on your page 87, Michelle.
So it's just like kind of 3 different sections.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That Arbor, Robin Lane, and Heartland Manor Court are cul-de-sacs.
And can only be accessed from Mitchell Mill.
Well, only can be accessed from Mitchell Mill.
So it would only open up that possibility of the Taviswood and the Taviston roads only. Right. So if it went all the way through, I was saying it would make more logical sense, because then you would truly have double access for all of the homes.
And again, that's where the county planned it out back in 2006, with the continuation for the adjoining
Yeah.
property.
Now, I think, David, you can help us on this. There's a couple ways to do it. We could put it in a condition tonight, which means we'll have direction on how they have to do it. I think I heard in testimony that they're flexible to do whatever, we want them to do, so, we can address it later, but I'm not sure kicking it down the road would help. I mean, if we want to do it, we need to do it. If we don't, we don't, so. And I sound like it's all in consensus except for Michelle.
No, it's okay. I just want us to be aware of that, but it's, it's fine.
But do you see what I'm saying? How it doesn't go all the way through the neighborhood? So it still cuts off, it still would just give access to those particular homes on
Had a
that.
little value to it.
Mayor, perhaps we could get an offer of that condition from the applicant, perhaps phrased as they're imagining it, to help us, if that's something that the board is considering.
Yeah, I think I heard offered either way, whatever. I think the statement I heard made was, whatever the board preferred, they would be okay with, pretty much.
So then, to help out the town attorney, would the condition be a connection is not required? Or is the condition a connection shall not be made to? Are we leaving it at the option of the developer, or are we precluding a connection to Taviston Court as part of their development?
Theory.
I think a condition is not required, the connection is not required.
Okay.
Everybody okay with it? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm more in favor for them to leave the easement there, or something like, we don't never know what the future has, but.
So to clarify, is the requirement that the right-of-way be reserved or dedicated, but there is no requirement to build it out?
That would serve the purpose, wouldn't it?
Is that acceptable to the applicant?
All right, I think that was it. And thank you for bringing it up, Michelle, because I did have that noted up as we were going through the public hearing that came up.
Okay. I just wanted, I heard the census of the planning board, and I just wanted to hear what you all had to think, what you all thought about that.
Whatever loose ends do we have?
Okay, I really want to go home, but I'm just going to say this part. So I'm not trying to nitpick everything. But oftentimes throughout this process, I've been hearing a lot of the citizens make the comment, and I'm going to read from this one. Please develop what has already been approved before approving more developments. So to me, that translates into stop building and take a look. And I would just love it if Danny could explain why that is not how towns grow. Look at Danny. Danny's like, why are you calling me out on this? Do you follow what I'm saying on that? Because you hear it all the time. They're saying we're growing, we're not thinking about it, we're just, all these other negative comments that were being said. But I think there's a reason why towns don't stop. Did I call you out and I should not have? I just thought you would be the best person to answer that question.
Well, there's two things you got to talk about. You're talking about whether to approve this or not approve this. So that's the annexation of the zoning. The other question I think you were saying is do a pause. A pause, I'm going to leave to the town attorney, but that's heading towards a moratorium.
Exactly. So that's why it's
And that, therefore, I don't know if you would want to do a moratorium right now, because if you do, you have to spell out for what purpose is the moratorium, and then what actions you're going to do to get it resolved quickly so you can remove the moratorium.
Right, and I guess your response is what I expected, but I'm thinking that sometimes people don't get, we're not just building to be building. There's a process to how towns grow, and you just can't stop because you don't like the growth that's taking place. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but road improvements also come with development.
Right,
I mean,
I'm not knocking it.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you said we're done with everything, but I want you to develop this road more, even though, like, so where does the funding come from that? Like, I mean, you're coming with a neighborhood here, and you're saying, if you put this neighborhood in, you need to widen the road, you need to put the intersection, you need to, that's how everything gets upgraded. You can't just, otherwise it comes out of, us paying for it, us building roads again. So I don't.
Now, just recap, when we get to the preliminary plat, they will be doing road improvements for the Rolesville portion.
Right.
And now we'll be doing a sidewalk on Mitchell Mill.
Right, and I'm saying growth continues, no matter how, if it's in our backyard or your backyard, it's gonna happen. So we just can't really stop and then take a look and then assess and keep moving forward. You kind of have to plan these things out, and nothing is planned in a day or a week, what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, because I've heard that so many times, you're just building to be building, or you're just building because you're getting a kickback, or this, and it's not about that at all. So.
Medley, my answer would go to your strategic plan, where one of your main elements is mindful growth. Development while maintaining small town character, and then goals. 12 says develop a unified and coordinated vision for land use that emphasizes diverse housing options and beautification. So I think you have answered yourself as a board what your goals are too, which is mindful growth. Continue to, so that helps.
Sometimes I think it's just important for people to hear for the first time, or for people to hear for the 10th time, or whatever, that mindful is thought out, it's laid out as we move forward. And that's my last question, or statement.
All right, you got that? Okay,
Did we settle the sidewalk gap that you mentioned? We talked about it, but I didn't hear any.
We'll just have to work it out on the site plan. When it comes to the preliminary, we'll have to work it out.
Okay, just want to make sure.
you talking about the one on Mitchell Mill? Yeah.
He's talking about the gap in Mitchell Mill.
Yeah. Okay. I'll entertain a motion from someone if someone has one.
I'll make the motion on the annexation. I move to approve the non-contiguous voluntary annexation of case ANX 20-03 Hopper Communities for 1801 Rolesville Road and 6301 Mitchell Mill Road into the Rolesville town limits to be effective November the 17th, 2020.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this motion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? I think everybody said aye. Okay. There is another item to be voted on. So did I hear a motion on the second one?
86.
On 86, I make a motion to approve resolution. Is that right? Make sure I'm reading the right thing.
But Paul,
I just want to make sure it was the right one. I make a motion to approve resolution 2020 R16 Town Board of Commissioners Statement of Consistency and approve the case MA 20-01 as presented.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on this motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that one is unanimous too. So thank you, board. Appreciate that. Good hard work. Thanks for working that out. I would like to just give a heads up. I think this is new information even for some of us in the room here. I did get a call from Rachel late yesterday afternoon, and the chamber has decided, with the increase in the COVA and the new mandates from the governor, that we will not have a Christmas parade this year. So that will be canceled. I do wish, on a happy note, I do wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you can spend some time with your families and extended families, but do it safely. Try to keep your gatherings to 10 or less. And that's kind of the new mandate that started Friday. We are seeing really a big uptick in the spread. So let's do what we can do to kind of control that. I think I saw today in some news that I believe it was the state of Pennsylvania is rolling back a lot of their things from even open of restaurants and things. They're rolling back and closing them down to inside public. So we want to avoid that, and the way to avoid it is each person doing their job as best they can to prevent the spread and kind of get it down. So let's have a happy Thanksgiving. I wish everybody well, and thank you, board, for working through this. It's been a pretty long night, but I think we got through it, and appreciate y'all doing that. So with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
wait, I want to say happy Thanksgiving too.
Okay.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you, Ronnie.
Yep.
And I move that we adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, board. Appreciate it. Good
And
job.
now that
there.
we're adjourned, thank you for approving the volleyball building legacy. They are really dedicated to this cause, and I think